A torrent of ancient knowledge crashes into Shiwei's mind all at once. It is the complete palm and fist techniques of Shiwei, and Shiwei is the most proficient master of those arts within the command realm. Years of accumulated expertise that have been refined to the sharpest point possible pour directly into his consciousness in one blinding flash of light. The technique taking shape inside him is called the Great Kulanutha's Mountain Throw. It is a martial art built on an unwavering earth-anchored will that sees through everything with absolute clarity. As the knowledge settles, the observers watching from outside are left speechless. He notes that our boy's martial arts will is something they have never witnessed before, and not even Tan Zhongyu, who is a full-fledged martial master, has ever displayed potential this raw and immovable. What stuns them most is that this incredible will belongs to what appears to be an ordinary and unremarkable young man. The golden luminous stone pool has once been a divine pool, and now it gets elevated to the shining stone level after absorbing Shiwei's martial master will, and it becomes something even greater. But even with that achievement, the one overseeing the process notices something troubling. Shiwei's will is so powerful that it leaves no room for even a single additional move to be added, and yet the young man himself is the most unsettled of all. A purple aura began to appear around Lu Sheng's body. There was an immense amount of energy anchoring him to the ground. As he moved, Akalanatha moved along with him. At the center of that power was the heart of a martial master. This is the things that Lu Sheng has been looking for, the third fragment of Martial Saint's will. Even Tan Zhongyu's potential couldn't compare to this sphere. This might be the will of Shiwei's martial master. He thought he could absorb maybe two more, but the idea was immediately rejected. If he actually tried it, his whole body would explode. He senses that he is close and dangerously close to breaking through to the martial master realm, but something feels wrong about it. He realizes that if he follows the stellar body refining art's path and levels up according to its natural progression, the balance inside his body will be instantly shattered. Every single martial will he has absorbed from the masters before him, and each one precious and each one representing a future he has promised to carry, will be completely consumed or destroyed in the process. He cannot accept that. Those wills are not just power to him, they are responsibilities. He tells himself that if he breaks through right now, he will not be able to hold on to those futures, and once they are gone, they will be gone forever. So he decides that before he takes that final step toward the martial master realm, he first needs to find a way to resolve this conflict, or find a martial master path that is entirely his own. The next morning, our boy steps outside to clear his head. He figures that sitting still and thinking in circles has gotten him nowhere, and so he wanders into the city streets and takes in the sights he has never bothered to explore during his time at the Martial Saint University. He passes through the city and comes across two elderly men in the middle of a game of Shang-Chi. He stops and watches. He notices how the differently colored pieces represent opposing forces and each one is blocking and countering the other, and he realizes that the interplay on the board feels a lot like how multiple martial wills clash and compete inside a single body. But before the thought can fully form, his mind hits a wall again and goes blank. He sighs and thinks that no matter how long he has been turning this problem over, he still cannot find the answer. He wanders further and goes into a noodle shop and orders a bowl of zhajiangmian. As the steaming bowl arrives, his thoughts drift. He thinks about his time at the battling potential martial temple and his student days at the university coming to an end, and he wonders if it is time to visit home. But then he looks down at the circular shape of the bowl and the swirl of noodles inside it, and something clicks. He realizes that every single martial path has its own strengths and its own weaknesses, but what if he does not have to choose just one? His approach has always been to take the best elements from each martial path and fuse them together and cut away the flaws entirely. He is so energized by this that he immediately orders 5 more bowls. The noodle shop owner laughs and says that rank 3 and rank 4 martial artists come in regularly and usually end up eating at least 20 bowls, so the guy is keeping good company. Lu Sheng tells the owner the noodles are excellent and that he will be back. The owner jokes that he should bring his girlfriend next time and slides him a fried egg on the house. He eats and keeps thinking. The shape of a circle stays with him, and something about it feels meaningful, though the full picture still is not clear yet. He knows the direction now, even if the exact solution is not there yet. He sees 2 children nearby erupt into an argument. One of them is playing with a toy Ultraman figure and shouting that the fire form is the strongest. The other child shoves back and insists the frost form is better. Back and forth they go. Fire form, frost form, fire form, interchangeable forms. His eyes go wide, and the answer that has been escaping him all this time finally comes together into perfect clarity. The key is not to pick one martial will over another. It is to make them all flow between each other and shift and transform like two sides of the same whole. A young man and woman were eating noodles at the shop. Both of them were martial artists, and the guy had already reached rank 2. They came here because the food tasted amazing. But soon, their attention shifted to Lu Sheng. He had already eaten nearly 100 bowls, with stacks of empty bowls piled up like a mountain. But our boy didn't pay them any attention at all. He was completely lost in thought, trying to figure out how to perfect his martial arts. Then something outside catches his eye. The Ultraman in the movie is unleashing a technique, and at its center blazes a perfect ring of fire, a complete and unbroken circle of energy. Lu Sheng freezes and his bowl hangs forgotten in his hand. He's stunned for a moment, and he realizes that in physics the circle is considered the most perfect shape in existence, and more importantly, it is also the shape of perfected martial arts. The insight from the children's Ultraman argument locks into place with a sharp click. His path forward is not to choose between the different wills he has absorbed, it is to forge them all into one seamless circular whole. Ice and fire operate as opposites, and plus and minus, and on top of those he has recently unlocked a third element entirely. The energy of mystery and the unknown, and the most incomprehensible and unpredictable force of all. He wonders what kind of method could possibly bind all three together, but the answer comes to him fast. He has it. He jumped out of his seat in excitement after finally understanding the problem that had been bothering him. The people around him thought he was a total weirdo, not only obsessed with cartoons, but also randomly getting shocked out of nowhere. But when he glanced at the wall, he noticed a familiar figure. He instantly realized it was Lu Sheng. But by then, Lu Sheng had already left. Lu Sheng began activating his vital qi and started merging the three different wills together. He activates a technique called psychic memory perception and turns his focus entirely inward and combines his vital qi and vitality into a single unified flow. The effect is immediate and overwhelming. Cold energy surges through his flesh and bones, while warm energy moves through his inner organs at the same time. And together they begin flushing a large amount of impurities out of his body and pushing him into the second stage of the smooth, clean body. His vitality sharpens. His psychic senses become cleaner and clearer than they have ever been, and beneath all of it he begins to feel something vast. The immense and crushing weight of the strength of the galaxies is pressing in around him and threatening to swallow him whole. But before he can fully process that sensation, something far more urgent erupts inside his mind. Three distinct martial arts wills suddenly begin tearing at each other within his consciousness. Fire blazes against ice, and both clash against the gray unknown in a violent three-way conflict. He realizes immediately how dangerous this is. If he lets them fight freely, and they keep countering each other without any direction, the insanity alone will kill him because three opposing forces with no resolution will simply destroy everything they inhabit, including him. So he makes a choice. He's going to give it a shot anyway. He addresses the three wills directly from within. He tells them he is the path they were never able to walk, and the strength they were never able to possess, and that he intends to master all of it. He declares that rather than fighting each other, all three of them will become the indispensable foundation of his perfected martial arts. The wills rage and push back, but our boy holds his ground with absolute certainty. The three forces collide one final time, and it is catastrophic. Fire and ice and gray mystery swirl into a single roaring vortex, and then against every expectation they do not destroy each other. They merge. The explosion of combined energy is enormous, and it is something that would have been unthinkable to any conventional martial master. And what remains in the aftermath is something entirely new. Lu Sheng stands quietly as everything settles, and he understands what he has created. This is the true form of his martial will. The one that has absorbed and unified techniques no ordinary practitioner could have achieved, and the one that has left every martial master stunned. He calls it by its name, the Stellar Intent. Somewhere in the vice principal's office, a sudden burst of energy tears through the air, and it is powerful enough to make the vice principal himself spin around in alarm and demand to know who is there. His aide quickly smooths things over and tells him it is nothing, and urges him to stand down. But in a quieter moment, the aide notes to himself that whatever that power is, it absolutely should not be coming from a student. Outside, Lu Sheng stands alone and quietly consolidates everything that has just clicked into place. Now that his martial arts will has been fully refined, his senses have expanded far beyond what they could reach before, and things that were once vague and distant now come through sharp and clear. He realizes he has already surpassed the stellar body refining core level entirely. But what captures his focus most is his newest arsenal, The skill immovable Akalanatha formed a gigantic ancient avatar, towering like a god descending upon the world. He runs through his abilities one by one. The sparrow drool first halberd is refined and sharper than ever. He could lift the boulder from a distance. The breath of frost has evolved beyond simple frost techniques and can now actually freeze the enemy's own techniques mid-execution and turn their martial arts against them. And finally, the last and most recent of them all is the stellar intent. The stellar intent feels unlike anything else our boy possesses. On the surface, he notices no dramatic physical difference, but he is certain that its true nature will only reveal itself the moment it clashes against an actual opponent. He can barely wait. While focusing on his training, Lu Sheng suddenly heard some noise coming from his dorm area. One guy was too scared to knock on the door because he was afraid of Lu Sheng, while the other kept urging him to hurry up. Then suddenly, Lu Sheng dropped down from above like a ghost, scaring the two young men half to death. They instantly straightened up and greeted our main character with military-level seriousness, before telling him that the vice principal had something important to discuss with him. Lu Sheng is soon called in to meet with a senior official, and it is likely the vice principal himself. The official wastes no time. First, the reward for his historic sweep against all 7 seats of the Marshal Saint Tower had officially been recorded, 75,000 student points. Vice Principal Kang Tai thought Lu Sheng would be completely shocked by that amount. But our boy only paused for a second and said, "That's it?" The vice principal nearly jumped out of his seat. Lu Sheng didn't show the slightest reaction. That many points were enough for someone to graduate over 150 times already. But why the hell would anyone need to graduate that many times? Kang Tai could only bury his face in defeat at Lu Sheng's expression. Aside from the points needed for graduation, the remaining points were enough to buy rank 4 mutated blood, rank 4 or 5 frost weapons, guidance from martial masters, and even a rank 6 mutated marrow tonic. After explaining everything, the vice principal picked up his tea to calm himself down, but he instantly spat it out halfway through drinking when Lu Sheng casually asked for a rank 7 mutated marrow tonic. The vice principal immediately realized that Lu Sheng was preparing to break through to the martial master realm. He examines Lu Sheng's martial master intent and immediately goes still. His expression shifts from composed to genuinely stunned as he confirms what he is sensing. Lu Sheng's martial master intent has been completely formed already. He tells the young man plainly that he is already preparing to break through to martial master whether he fully realizes it or not. But the official is not done. He tells Lu Sheng there is something else he needs to know, and it is something that is shadowing him. A dark entity containing a massive concentration of negative emotions appears to be tracking Shiwei specifically. It is not attacking, but it is not leaving either. The official makes clear that this is not something that can be ignored, and there is a further complication. The Martial Saint is a figure far above the university's rank, and might soon take an interest in Shiwei's situation. They might investigate directly, or they might send people to intervene on his behalf. Either way, the official tells our boy he needs to face a test before any of that happens. The official produces a document and slides it across. It details a martial arts tournament and not an ordinary one. This tournament pulls in students from the most elite academies in existence, and that includes the legendary Supreme Tao and Transcendence Academies. These institutions do not produce average prodigies. Their students are described as fundamentally different on a physical and cultivation level, and they follow a development course that surpasses anything the regular university can offer. The age range goes up to 30, and that means Shiwei could be matched against seasoned practitioners who have been training their entire lives. The official explains that even though this test only happens once, Lu Sheng does not have to take the tournament route. He has a choice. He only needs to complete one of the 2 missions to pass. Lu Sheng opens the second envelope. The contents hit him like a wall. Complete an SSS rank warrant. Difficulty level extremely dangerous. Lu Sheng reads the SSS class mission briefing carefully. The target is Lian Ye, and he is a level 6 martial artist with a track record of lethal crimes and is cold-blooded in nature and ruthless without exception. What immediately strikes our boy as strange is that the mission lists no rewards. None at all, and yet it carries the highest possible danger classification. The reason becomes clear as he reads further. Lian Ye is not just a criminal. He is deeply connected to Zhao Ji, and Zhao Ji is the founder of the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy and one of the most powerful institutions in the country. But that is not the worst of it. Lian Ye's younger sister Lian Gu is the 5th wife of the Martial Saint Ji himself. Killing Lian Ye would not just mean taking down a level 6 target, it would mean killing a Martial Saint's brother-in-law and inviting the wrath of an entire elite faction down on whoever pulls the trigger. The vice principal lays out the full picture. The mission exists because of a tragedy. A pig factory worker's 2 daughters have been abused and mutilated by Lian Ye, and those crimes were committed openly with no attempt at concealment. After bearing witness to the suffering for as long as he could, the 7th Martial Saint could no longer stand by and listed the assassination as a credit mission on the official board. But to protect students from stumbling into it unknowingly, it was quickly pulled from public access. The complication runs deeper still. This mission touches not 1 but 2 Martial Saints, and that means the university cannot simply send its own people to handle it. Any official action risks triggering a nationwide confrontation between factions at the highest level of power, and that is something with consequences too vast to calculate. So instead it is quietly left in the hands of whoever is skilled enough and desperate enough to take it. Lu Sheng looks at the vice principal and asks him directly what his real aim is in presenting this. The vice principal does not deny it. He explains that killing Lian Ye comes with a specific consequence beyond the retaliation of the Supreme Dao faction. It will bring Lu Sheng under the direct protection and guidance of Tan Zhongyu, and Tan Zhongyu is the 7th Martial Saint. With that backing, no enemy faction can touch him. His path forward will be cleared of obstacles, and it will mean safety and advancement and patronage from one of the most powerful figures in existence. The young man asks for the home address of the pig factory worker mentioned in the briefing, and then turns and walks out without another word. Behind him, the vice principal is left alone with a cloaked figure. He admits he may have said too much. The cloaked figure is unmoved and notes that only those who pass the Martial Saint's genuine test are truly worthy, and that even reaching the Martial Master stage in one's teenage years means nothing if that underlying quality is not there. Lu Sheng walks through the corridor and turns the situation over in his mind. He sees it clearly now. The 2 choices are not really 2 equal options. They are a nudge. The vice principal has all but pointed a flashing sign at the second mission. Choose to kill Lian Ye. Come under Tan Zhongyu's wing. That is the intended answer. The scheme is so transparent it almost impresses him. But our boy is not interested in walking the path someone else has laid out for him. He thinks through both options with cold precision. The first is defeating every sub-30 martial master nationwide, and that is considered nearly impossible by conventional standards. But with what the system has given him, Lu Sheng figures it is entirely within reach. The second is killing a level 6 martial artist, and that would technically be straightforward on its own, but completing it means getting pulled into Tan Zhongyu's orbit, and the guy has no intention of trading one leash for another. As for Lian Ye himself, that is a different matter. Lu Sheng is not killing him for a mission or a political arrangement. Lian Ye and his father have earned their deaths through what they have done, and that judgment belongs to no one's agenda but his own. He will not choose between the 2 challenges, he will complete both of them. Kill Lian Ye and defeat every martial master in the country. Not for the Martial Saint's test, not for protection, simply because if he cannot stand on his own against a Martial Saint's pressure without running to someone else for cover, then he has no business talking about surpassing Wang He. On the outskirts of Nanping City, a full law enforcement operation is already in motion. Officers have sealed off the surrounding area and snipers are in position, and the command center is on high alert and prepared to support President Qian and his team as they move in. The deputy director on scene is confident. Experts from Jiangxi province have been brought in, and that includes some ranked in the top 100 hunters nationwide, and President Qian himself is present. A level 7 demon should not pose any real problem. If all goes well, by sunset, they should have the monster invasion under control. Then a taxi suddenly appears. Lu Sheng arrives at the perimeter. A pink-haired officer named Xiao Yaran stops him immediately and demands to know who he is and what he is doing in a sealed wilderness zone. Our boy presents his mission card, and it is issued by the 7th Martial Saints University and authorizes him to be there under individual circumstances. Xiao Yaran reaches for the card to examine it, but before her fingers close around it, the card vanishes from her grasp entirely. She stares at her empty hand. She is a level 4 martial artist, and he has lifted it without her noticing a thing. She tells herself immediately that this kid is not ordinary. Xiao Yaran shifts her approach. She mentions the hunters list, and it is a ranking system within the martial world specifically for bounty hunters, and rank is determined by mission completion rate. She tells Lu Sheng that if everything goes smoothly, he should not be needed here at all. He listens and says the concept sounds interesting and turns to walk toward the sealed zone anyway. He does not get far before one of the larger fighters in the group steps in front of him and tells him flatly that he is not needed anymore. The sentence is not even finished before the situation detonates entirely. Everything descended into chaos. Through the thick smoke, a massive tentacle appeared. It looked like it belonged to a gigantic octopus. A massive creature erupts from the darkness without warning. The entire team is caught off guard. Fighters are hurled across the terrain, and screams erupt, and within seconds people are on the ground calling for help. Xiao Yaran roars at her unit to open fire, and weapons discharge in every direction, but the situation is already chaos. It is not the level 6 monster the intelligence has reported. The thing tearing through the operation is nearly level 7. She rounds on Lu Sheng and is furious and demands to know where he got his intel from. She says this is beyond the capability of Nanping City's forces entirely and that they need to contact higher command immediately. But Lu Sheng stops her. He tells the group to step back and take a break. He says he only needs 5 minutes. Before anyone can argue, he is already moving. What follows leaves the entire unit speechless. He crosses the battlefield in a blur, and with no hesitation and no wasted motion, and the monster that has just shredded through an elite task force finds itself facing someone who handles the opening exchange like it is nothing. The hunters watching from behind can barely track what is happening. One of them manages to ask who exactly that guy is, but our boy is not fighting clean. He notes to himself that the monster stinks, and that he has taken a hit he did not need to during the engagement. He moved up the floors at incredible speed. When he reaches the level with the strongest killing intent, he opens the door and was met with the terrified face of the captured martial artist. Behind him was a monster covered in hundreds of eyes across its body, along with a horrifying mouth wide open as if ready to devour its next meal. He finds the creature in full form. It is the flesh-eyed demonic worm, and it is a nightmare of red flesh and writhing mass, and its single enormous eye is locked onto him with something between hunger and rage. And near it, half collapsed on the ground, is one of the fallen fighters from President Qian's team. The man is still breathing, and barely. Lu Sheng looks at him and says he is sorry. He has been too late. But then his expression hardens into something colder and more certain than regret. He makes a promise. This thing will not die quickly, and it will not die without pain. The flesh-eyed demonic worm squares off against Lu Sheng in the ruined outskirts of Nanping City. Our boy immediately clocks something off about the situation. These monsters typically range between level 5 and 6 in strength, and that makes their appearance here unusual enough on its own. But the one in front of him has clearly crossed into near level 7 territory, and even that detail feels wrong. It should not be here at all. The battle began. The monster swung one of its arms hard at Lu Sheng, but its arm almost shattered on impact, while Lu Sheng stood there completely unharmed. Enraged, it roared and attacked again with its other arm. This time the strike was faster and stronger, but with just a slight movement, our hero dodged it perfectly. Lu Sheng told it to aim a little better. It fires a concentrated blast of corrosive energy directly at him. Lu Sheng sidesteps it without urgency and watches the creature look around in confusion, then tells it simply that it can start trembling now with his fire and ice combination. Outside the sealed perimeter, the hunter team watches with mounting disbelief. One of the large fighters who had initially tried to turn Lu Sheng away is staring into the zone and unable to track his movements, and this man is a peak level 6. He cannot see a single trace of how the kid is moving. Xiao Yaran pulls out the ID card and confirms Shiwei's university affiliation, and notes that she has never seen a student, let alone a freshman, fight like this. If Lu Sheng provokes the monster and it breaks loose into the city, the consequences could be catastrophic. He decides to tell the girl to report the situation to the Martial Association and military immediately just in case. She never gets the chance to finish that call. Something happens inside the sealed zone that no one outside can fully see. A building-shaking impact erupts and a burst of force rattles the entire block. Then silence. Inside the building, the monster was beaten so badly by Lu Sheng that it was barely hanging on. Lu Sheng thought it was already dead and even wondered why it had gone down so easily. But suddenly, the creature twitched, smashed through the building wall, and leapt outside. Everyone thought Lu Sheng had lost, and people immediately started evacuating the civilians. But the worm suddenly collapses. Its enormous body folds in on itself, and ichor spills across the ruined ground. Lu Sheng walks out of the zone less than 5 minutes after he walked in. It is dead. The entire team stares. Xiao Yaran looks like she has seen something she does not have a category for. The leader thanks him in the most formal posture. He thinks that the flesh-eyed demonic worm is dead, and that he went in for less than 5 minutes. Lu Sheng tells her the mission is complete, and asks her to adjust the completion record accordingly. He also tells him that the earnings from the bounty do not need to come to him, and that they should go to the families of the people who died in the operation. The earnings from a level 7 monster kill are more than enough to provide for them for the rest of their lives. The deputy director is visibly overwhelmed and thanks him repeatedly. Lu Sheng then asks Xiao Yaran if she can help arrange a car because he needs to catch a train. She immediately agrees to drive him herself and is clearly flustered in a way that has nothing to do with professionalism. He thanked her for the trouble with an unbelievably handsome smile. She thinks to herself, he's not only strong but also really handsome. She panics internally at her own thought and nearly trips over herself. In just that single moment, she had already started thinking about what to name their future children. Lu Sheng glances back and wonders what her problem is, but she's too shy to reply. But as they leave, his mind returns to the thing that has been nagging at him since the fight began. He thinks how exactly a near level 7 monster made it through the front line and ended up inside a small city like Nanping. It has happened before, but historically the monsters were far weaker and were stopped within a few kilometers of crossing the national border at most, and always with advance warning. This time, however, the monster arrived in Nanping City without any warning whatsoever. Lu Sheng's expression goes still. Something is behind this, and it is not an accident. Jie Ran drives Lu Sheng toward the train station, and the conversation turns to something darker. Reports have surfaced that spies from the Lion Kingdom have been smuggling monsters across the border, and it is a deliberate act of sabotage designed to sow chaos inside human territory. There are even signs pointing toward a dragon-lion conflict brewing beneath the surface. Our boy reads through the news quietly and feels a familiar exhaustion settle over him. He reflects that from the vantage point of 10,000 years into the future, humanity's greatest enemy is never the monsters. Factions within their own civilization use outside threats as weapons against each other. He tells himself that once he is strong enough, he will crush the Lion Kingdom on his own. Jie Ran notices his expression and asks if something is on his mind. He tells her it is nothing and just some foolish matters he will sort out eventually. She pulls up to the station and he thanks her for the ride, and she waves him off with a cheerful send-off. The moment his back is turned, she stares after him with an unmistakably dazed look and wonders to herself when she will see him again. I guess she's gonna his spouse too. Sitting with 3 other wives, the scene shifts to Baiheino 1 High School, where a match is wrapping up in the gymnasium. Our main sister, named Lu Qinghe, finishes the bout decisively, and her opponents have no answer for her practical combat skills. The gathered students react with awe, and several of them note that she is sure to become the top martial artist in the city. Lu Qinghe seems entirely unbothered by the praise, and even a little sullen about something else entirely. Her friends pick up on it immediately. One of them teases her and says she is skilled enough to be the pride of the whole kingdom, and yet she seems unhappy. The reason they suggest with knowing grins is that her brother had mentioned testing her when he next visited but has not shown up yet. They offer to treat Lu Qinghe to a meal whenever he does come by, as long as he shows up. Lu Qinghe tells them to knock it off and storms out of the gym and announces she cannot deal with lovesick fools. She collides directly with someone in the doorway. Her eyes go wide. She looks up. It is her brother. Lu Qinghe lights up immediately and demands to know why he is back before winter break and whether he has missed her. Lu Sheng tells her he is just passing through to complete a mission. She pivots instantly and looks for gifts. He produces high-quality martial arts supplements designed to help her break through her current stage. She stares at the bottles for a long moment, and then informs him flatly that he really does not understand girls at all. Before he can respond, a basketball comes flying out of nowhere and nearly takes Lu Qinghe's head off. The young man plucks it out of the air without looking. A large red-haired student named Xu Ang strolls over and addresses Lu Qinghe directly and asks if she is done with classes. The tension between them is immediately visible. Lu Qinghe clearly has zero interest, and Lu Sheng clocks it instantly. Xu Ang asks who Lu Sheng is. Lu Qinghe tells him it is none of his business and tries to leave with her brother. But Xu Ang blocks their path and calls after her and insists that she does not need to demean herself by finding some old man to be friends with. Lu Sheng pauses. He turns around slowly and asks if Xu Ang has just called him an old man. The emotional damage registers on his face before anything else. Lu Qinghe, unbothered, tells Xu Ang to go to hell and then physically kicks him into the most hurtful place to send him skidding across the ground and yelping. Lu Xing stares at where Xu Ang lands and asks if he is okay. Xu Ang hauls himself upright and is trembling and promises that this is not over and that he will bring people to handle both of them. Lu Sheng asks Lu Qinghe if that guy has been bothering her. She confirms it and says Xu Ang has been pestering her non-stop. Our boy considers this and notes that beating him with a single guy might actually be feasible since they are in a no-one high school. Lu Sheng said that if Qinghe ever wanted to choose a boyfriend, she should avoid guys with the surnames Lin, Xiao, or Ye. Because those people were anything but normal. There was no way to know what was going on inside their heads. After that, she shifted the topic and asked whether Lu Sheng had brought any girlfriend home, since his relationship with Senior Yang Yuan didn't seem exactly normal. Hearing that, Lu Sheng pinched her cheek and told her to stop overthinking things. After that, she mentioned about Lu Qiming and says it is someone he has been meaning to say goodbye to before leaving for university. Lu Qinghe tells him there is a thing about that. Lu Qiming has not made it into the university, but he has not contacted Lu Sheng before leaving because he has already joined up elsewhere. Lu Sheng pulls out his phone. He has over 99 unread messages from Lu Qiming sitting in his inbox. He opens them. The news stops him cold. Lu Qiming has joined the Eastern Military District. At the Eastern Military District's new recruit training camp, Lu Qiming is in the middle of doing laundry when a larger recruit starts picking on him and calls him Little Fatso and mocks him for breaking a minor camp rule. Lu Qiming takes the insult with practiced patience. Then his phone buzzes. He looks at the screen and his entire face changes. It is a message from Lu Sheng. It says that he has gone to the Eastern Military District and that Shi Wei will be there soon, and to wait for him. Lu Qiming stares at those words for a full second and then completely loses it. He lets out a noise of pure joy that rattles the entire laundry area and startles everyone around him. The recruit who had just been harassing him watches in confusion as Lu Qiming, still grinning like an idiot, informs him cheerfully that he prefers Yellow Moon laundry detergent and asks him to please use the right one next time. Lu Qiming this time does not take this well. What follows is a beating. The recruit turns out to be well above Lu Qiming's current level and hammers him into the ground without much effort and sneers that Lu Qiming cannot even attain martial artist status and has no business acting tough. He was sent rolling across the ground and kept getting slammed harder and harder until blood started dripping from his mouth. Lu Qiming ends up on the ground and bloodied, but he does not beg. He just tells Kimi to wait and that from now on he is going to get beaten every single day. One of Timi's friends could only stand there watching from a distance and only dared to walk over after the fight was already over. He pull the aggressor away and check on Lu Qiming and are genuinely baffled as to why he keeps provoking someone so far above him. Lu Qiming laughs through a busted face and tells him he does not understand. That guy is going to be a general someday and is the descendant of a national ascending dragon martial artist and someone people will look up to for generations. Lu Qiming decides he absolutely cannot let someone like that humiliate him without consequence and that he will keep getting back up. His friends conclude that the beating has scrambled his brain entirely. The scene shifts to the future world. Lu Sheng stands before Ellie and asks her to search for someone. Lu Qiming, Class 3 student of Baihei High School in Baihei City, year 300 of the Dragon Country calendar. Ellie pulls up the records. What she finds is that Lu Qiming's life trajectory has already diverged significantly from what it was before Shi Wei's influence, and he is a completely different person from the version that existed without Shi Wei's presence. In this altered future, Lu Qiming has enlisted in the military and risen to become a record-class beast, and is commended for valor. After leaving the military, he goes on to establish a logistics company worth tens of millions. He raises 2 daughters and lives a warm and peaceful and fulfilling life. He passes away at 90 and is surrounded by family. Our boy reads through it quietly. He decides that this is the best he can do for Lu Qiming from a distance, and that keeping his existence stable and not interfering directly is the right call so as not to disrupt that future. He closes the file and lets it be. The next day, Lu Sheng visits the Lingsheng pharmaceutical store, and it is a family business still operating in Danming province. He addresses the Chen family directly and tells them that provoking her is the same as provoking him, and that provoking him is an extraordinarily foolish thing to do. He tells her to relax and says that as long as he is there, nothing will happen to her. Lu Qinghe stares at him. It has only been 2 months since he left, but the person standing next to her now is almost unrecognizable from the brother she knew. The absolute composure and the quiet authority behind every word make her think to herself that it is like looking at a true powerhouse. Uncompromising and supreme, Lu Sheng activates his psychic power and extends his perception outward. He began the process of brewing the medicine. He notes that the threat this time is not just the second stage of the immortal golden body, and it runs deeper than that. He tells himself that even if it is the sun itself standing in the way, he will extinguish it. 2 days later, Lu Sheng checks into the Baihei City World Trade International Hotel and requests a presidential suite. He explains to himself that he is about to begin the second phase of perfecting the golden body technique, and that to avoid any disturbances at home, renting a private room is the safer option. But as he stands at the front desk waiting for confirmation, something catches his attention. A presence. Vast and dense, and with vital energy blazing like a furnace and cold energy coiling like an Arctic wind. He turns slightly, his eyes sharpen. That is a martial master. The blonde martial master at the hotel confirms her booking for a presidential suite without hesitation. The hotel staff quietly alerts her that Bai City has just welcomed a legitimate martial master, and that his vital energy is weaker than established names like Zhao Kangtai and Xia Fengnan, but he is a martial master nonetheless. The blonde woman registers this information with mild interest. She thinks Bai City has welcomed a martial master and his vital energy is weak. She notes to herself that since he is not a threat, there is no need to pay him much attention. Coming in the elevator, she's talking to someone through her earphones. She tells everything's smooth so far, but she's interested in Lu Sheng. She is there on vacation after all and not on business. She does, however, notice the small, unassuming figure checking in at the same counter. She wonders briefly who he is and senses something capable underneath the surface. She decides it is probably nothing, and maybe a Dark Star operative or just someone with good genes. She files it away and moves on. Lu Sheng reaches his room and approves of the suite immediately. The bathtub alone is large enough to accommodate all the golden dragon elixir he needs. He fills it and submerges himself and begins the second stage of the immortal golden body technique. The energy surges through him, and fire and gold coil through every layer of his body. He grins through the haze of it. This feels exactly right. Now is the time to make the breakthrough. Behind him, and unbeknownst to him, the blonde martial master has tracked the location. She peers in from outside and mutters that this sneaky little mouse thought he could slip away, but that it is too late and he cannot escape. Then she catches herself and thinks it over again. She decides to let him enjoy his vacation first. Her own is just beginning. The breakthrough completes. Our boy stands up from the bath and flexes his fist, and the immortal golden body second stage locks into place. He tests his defense and realizes that even a martial master's cold weapon can now barely get through. He is effectively unharmed by conventional martial master attacks. He thinks about what comes next, and about the great martial master realm, and the realm of vitality, and a path that the future warriors of his dreams have charted one way, but which he is already diverging from. His unique path makes the normal classification of realms almost entirely inapplicable to him. He stands at the threshold of level 7 martial master, and just one step away, but he holds back. If he breaks through now, it will cause a sensation, and even great martial masters might take notice, and that kind of attention could frighten off certain targets he is not ready to lose. He decides to wait. Instead, he will use his preferred method and find a secluded place and test his new strength there, away from prying eyes. Lu Sheng heads out into the city at night. Across town, a taxi is cutting through darkened streets toward the western suburbs. They're both scared in the taxi and wonder if they lost them. Inside, a man in fine clothes holds a frightened young girl and presses the driver to keep moving and pay triple the fare if he keeps quiet. The driver started acting strangely and saying that 3 times isn't enough. The passenger has no idea what that means, but suddenly a familiar figure burst into the taxi to capture both of them. Turn out, the girl is the Ring Seal's 9th martial seal, White Suit. When the taxi finally stops, the man yanks the woman out into the darkness of an abandoned industrial zone, and it is a former chemical plant shut down due to environmental violations. Lu Sheng arrives at the same location moments later and is drawn there by his senses. He lands quietly and notes that the abandoned plant is perfect for testing his abilities without causing a commotion in the city. His maximum explosive speed should be completely undetectable even to the military's monitoring equipment out there. Then he sees it. A martial master with an aura that is powerful and predatory, and dragging a struggling girl into the dark. A middle-aged man with a cold bearing committing crimes in the dead of night. Lu Sheng stares at the scene for a moment. He tells himself he cannot just stand by and watch. He moves. He activates the immortal golden body and challenges the assassin. Killing a martial artist with just one blow is too boring, so now he doesn't use martial will or vital chi. At the chemical factory, the man is still being hunted by the blonde assassin. She beats him until he collapses and stomps hard to break his leg. He is getting brutalized by a blonde female martial artist, while his young daughter watches in horror and screams for her daddy. Talk, or the little girl loses her legs. She gives the father 10 minutes. The father is bleeding and broken and refuses to give up the intel and insists the information is locked inside his head and his head alone. He is stalling and trying to protect his daughter. The man threatens her, saying all the intel exists only inside his head. If she kills him, she gains nothing. He tries to commit suicide with the poison hidden inside his mouth, but the assassin moves faster, violently ripping out the oddly colored tooth, and saying he doesn't get to die so easily. She threatens to hurt his daughter if he refuses to talk. The man can only beg for his daughter to be spared and says he will tell her everything. Then Lu Sheng arrives to clean everything up. He rushes forward and snatches the little girl away so fast that even a martial artist like her can't keep up. He asks why she refuses to spare a child when she herself is a martial artist. The woman can only stare in fear and wonder if he is Dark Star. Dark Star or Bright Star. Our boy doesn't care. He calls himself the sun and appears behind her without making a single sound. Even as a martial artist, she feels like nothing more than an insect in front of Lu Sheng. Flames ignite inside our boy's palm as he grabs the assassin by the face and slams her head into the ground, creating a massive fiery shockwave. Lu Sheng still doesn't feel satisfied, so he does it again. This time the impact shakes even harder and lights up the entire factory district. Our boy mutters to himself that she has died just like that, and wonders if she was way too weak, and he sounds more disappointed than relieved. The father is now fully terrified and scrambles to offer a deal. He will tell everything about the coordinates to an Aurum mine and the exact location. The young man could not care less. He has not been there for the intel. He is just passing by and saw trouble and handled it. He turns to leave. Because he already knows the locations of every Aurum mine in the world from the dream space, he simply doesn't care. When they finally stand up again, the father suddenly coughs up blood and speaks like he is delivering his final words. Too many bones are broken, and now he can't even stand or walk anymore. He tells his daughter to leave and protect herself. Seeing that, Lu Sheng softens a little. He turns around, carries the father onto his back, and says that if he is going to help, then he might as well help to the very end. He ends up escorting the pair to a nearby hotel. The father thanks him over and over. Our boy hands him something to drink and tells him it will speed his recovery and instructs the daughter to get some rest. Then the real conversation begins. The father produces something he has taken off the blonde assassin. It is a ring made of Aurum. He asks Lu Sheng what he knows about ring seals and Dark Star. The explanation unfolds. Both are mysterious international organizations operating in the shadows of the martial arts world. Ring seals sit at the martial master level and above, while Dark Star operates even higher, and both groups have a global reach that most martial artists never even brush up against. Their target this time is the Aurum mine. The father reflects grimly and says that in the era when martial arts first awakened, ambition ran rampant and the forces contending for dominance over the world's resources were never weak. Our boy listens and then admits he is not privy to those higher-level secrets. When asked what he plans to do next, the man suggests taking things one step at a time and says Lu Sheng has already done more than enough by saving them. But our boy smiles. He tells them he does have a solution that could solve everything once and for all. The conversation ends there, and it is quiet and confident, and there is a plan forming behind those calm eyes aimed at cutting through the chaos at its root. The father is desperate and will agree to anything if it means escaping the hunters on his trail. Our boy's demand is simple. He wants the exact location of the Aurum mine. The man gives it up without hesitation, and then Lu Sheng does something no one expects. He posts the coordinates online for everyone to see, publicly, just like that. The father nearly has a meltdown and says that mine is worth billions, and our boy has just handed the location to the entire world. But that is exactly the point. With the information out in the open, there is nothing left worth extracting from the father, and no one has any reason to hunt him anymore. The threat evaporates the moment the secret stops being a secret. Over at Ring Seals, the reaction is immediate fury. Their operative is dead and their leverage is gone, and now the mine's location is spreading fast. The man in charge is livid and wants to know who has taught their agent a hard lesson and demands that person be found and made into a corpse. But the cooler heads in the room recognize the play for what it is. A clever move. With the location public, the father is worthless, and killing him now would be pointless and dangerous given the attention it would draw. Our boy sees the father and daughter off. The little girl asks if they will meet again. He tells her they definitely will. Meanwhile, investigators arrive at the scene of the fight. The kill is brutal, and the depth of impact and the force of the blow and the profile of the attacker give them a lot to debate. One of the men shuts it down fast. With the Aurum mine location now public, their mission is already pointless, and he is out and says anyone who wants to keep investigating can do it without him. Alone now, Lu Sheng runs through what he knows. Dark Star, Ring Seals, the Black Demon boost. He pulls up the data in his mind, and even in 10,000 years of future history, he has logged these organizations have operated with intense secrecy. A martial path is not something you casually cultivate, and the shadow of state machinery looms behind all of it. Then something catches his attention. The Ring Seals organization's method is not just training martial artists, they monsterify them. Monster genes are surgically transplanted into willing or unwilling subjects and grant strength that exceeds the base level by 5 to 10 times. But there's downside. After accepting the monster gene transplant, the martial artist's consciousness and body will be eroded and transformed like a ticking time bomb, and they may explode at any moment. That is what the blonde assassin he has killed earlier was. No wonder she moved the way she did. No wonder she felt wrong. If he ever encounters one in the field again, he will lend a hand, and it will be a simple gesture with no obligation. He wants to look up information about the father and daughter. The system pulls up her data. Martial Masterclass and an unofficial operative for Dragon Country's martial unit and personally responsible for eliminating over 800 targets. Lu Sheng blinks at the number. He has not been expecting someone of that caliber to just materialize in front of him. He clocks the awkward situation and keeps it casual. Then a status suddenly appears. She secretly loves the nation's martial saint Lu Sheng, and therefore remains unmarried for her entire life. Lu Sheng freezes for a moment after reading that information. Then he completely loses it and swears he never watches this kind of drama again. But there is no more time for side detours. A name surfaces in his thoughts, and it is one he has been holding on to. Luan Ye. It is time to deal with that bastard. Our boy makes his way to Fengzhe City West District and tracks down an address in the workers' zone. This is where Fu Jianming lives, or used to live. Fu Jianming, whose entire family has been wiped out by Luan Ye and his son. He knocks. A wary face peers out from behind the door. The person says Fu Jianming does not live there anymore and that the house is theirs now, and tells Lu Sheng to leave or they will call the police. Our boy does not flinch. She wants to close the door, but our boy doesn't give her a chance to do that. The address is correct and he is certain of it. Fu Jianming has been here, which means something has happened, and he intends to find out what. The current resident of Fu Jianming's old house does not know much and only says that the man has lost his mind after his whole family died and now lives by the garbage dump in the neighborhood. He has not stolen the house. Fu Jianming has already gone crazy before he left. Our boy thanks him and walks away. He finds Fu Jianming exactly where he has been told, and the old man is hunched over by the dump and digging through scraps and is a hollow shell of a person, white-bearded and weathered and clearly broken. Our boy calls his name. Fu Jianming looks up and is suspicious and asks who he is and what he wants. The backstory spills out in grim detail. Fu Jianming had originally 2 daughters. The younger one caught the eye of Lan Ye's son and was kidnapped. The elder daughter Fu Ying confronted the branch manager of the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy and never came back. A week later, both sisters' bodies were found on the outskirts of the city and in horrible condition. That same year, Fu Jianming's wife could not bear the grief and took her own life. He is left with nothing. Our boy introduces himself as Fu Ying's classmate and says he is there to help. Fu Jianming does not buy it for a second. He has seen enough martial artists drift through over the years, and plenty have shown up with kind faces and gone nowhere. He calls the bluff immediately and says he cannot be fooled and that he remembers every single face clearly, and that none of them have said they have not seen little Ying, and asks how they could have not seen her. The old man breaks mid-sentence and tears spill through the rage. Our boy admits it. He says he is sorry and that he has lied and that he is not Fu Ying's classmate, but he insists he is genuinely there to help and that he means it. Fu Jianming erupts. He dumps out everything he has, and it is a pile of crumpled bills and whatever valuables he has scraped together, and shoves it forward. It is not much and he knows it. He says he can earn more and that he will give everything and offers his life if that is what it takes. Our boy says nothing for a long moment. Then the old man slumps and says to forget it and that Lu Sheng can leave because he knows he will not help him. He asks bitterly if the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy has sent someone to mock him. He says he will not die, not until he sees them dead, not until he watches them go to hell with his own eyes. He pulls out a worn photograph and it is his family whole and smiling from before everything fell apart. Our boy looks at the photo. Then quietly he tells the old man to rest assured. He will see it. Fu Jianming freezes. Even through his suspicion, something in those words lands differently. He thanks him and his voice cracks and he adds that if our boy is deceiving him, he does not care. He thanks him anyway. A passerby who has been watching fills in the rest. People in the area have tried to help the old man over the years, and martial artists come through occasionally after his fortunes collapsed and his house was taken and he went broke and ended up there. Most seem decent enough and willing to listen, but no one ever actually does anything. Then the bystander hears that our boy has approached him and figures he is a good person worth talking to. Lu Sheng confirms it plainly. He is going to put an end to the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy. The bystander stares after him and is stunned and wonders who exactly he is. Across town at 7th St. Martial University, a very different conversation is happening. Two figures sit in a quiet room and discuss the situation over tea. The subject is that our boy has skipped Ming City entirely. He has taken on two missions, and one is A-ranked and one is AA-ranked, and both are near the capital, and he has deliberately sidestepped Luanye, who is currently based in Ming City. He has gone to Nanjing instead. The read on his intentions is sharp. He is avoiding Luanye on purpose and is also dodging the martial saint's second disciple, and is choosing his battles carefully before the national martial arts competition, and seeking good fortune and avoiding disaster. The man across the table is not convinced the competition is the deciding moment. The martial saint does not make a habit of offering second chances. Silence settles between them. Then, measured and cold, the words come out. Lu Sheng had better not be a disappointment. Not to him. Not to the martial saint. Word travels fast at 7th St. Martial University. Students are buzzing about our boy completing an AA-ranked mission in under half a week, and now he is back on campus and apparently joining the National Collegiate Martial Arts Tournament. The reaction is split. Some are thrilled the Demon King is joining. Others quietly note that with him around, the rest of them are just background characters. The uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud is that his strength is the only good thing about this situation for the team. But there is a catch. The martial saint has set a trap disguised as a rule. If our boy participates in the National Collegiate Tournament, he will be deemed to have accepted it, and that means his only option afterward will be taking on a legendary SSS-ranked mission. The implication is obvious. The martial saint is deliberately suppressing him and boxing him in through institutional pressure. A girl who has heard this from her father explains the setup to the group, and the reaction is outrage. Nobody can understand why anyone would do that to Lu Sheng. The answer is that the martial saint's thinking runs deeper than anyone in their circle can follow, and there has to be reasons behind it. Either way, the mood is bitter. 2 years ago, the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy crushed 7th Saint in the tournament and humiliated them completely. Rumor is that the academy has also produced a so-called Saint Seed since then, and someone extraordinary. People have been counting on our boy to finally turn the tide. Now it looks like he will not show. A guy named Ling Xing tries to console a frustrated teammate and tells him not to worry and that it will be okay and that you get used to it. That lands about as well as expected. Back at the school dormitory, our boy receives a notification the moment he returns. The tournament begins at 8 a.m. and everyone is to gather at the school gate, and late arrivals will be treated as withdrawal. He reads it and immediately clocks the timing. It has appeared the instant he got back. The school is watching him, but they are not just watching. They are checking whether he will bolt. He does not blink. He says to no one in particular that they do not want him to go, and then answers his own question. The path he walks is his to choose, and no one, including 7th St. Martial University and the martial saint, gets to dictate his steps. He shows up. 3 days later, at the school gate, buses are loaded and students are buzzing with excitement. The Demon King crushing those martial halls is going to be a show, but as the clock ticks toward 8, our boy is nowhere to be seen. The vice principal, who has clearly expected exactly this, allows himself a small, satisfied smile. As expected, he will not come. Then something drops out of the sky. Our boy lands in the middle of the crowd and is clean and composed and slightly out of breath and says simply that he is sorry and that he is late. The crowd erupts. The vice principal stares. Our boy meets his eyes and says, calm as ever, that reality will be shaped according to his beliefs, and that is what the vice principal has told him. A beat of silence. Then everyone boards the bus. On the ride to Ziyun Mountain, a teacher briefs the group. As top students of 7th Saint, they are expected to wear the same uniform and represent the school, and this might be some students' first time at the National Martial Arts Tournament, so he will introduce the basics. Internally, our boy processes what he already knows and what the tournament means for his development. At level 7, a martial artist's vitality flows like a river. A Grand Martial Master's vitality becomes a force unto itself and is capable of affecting the environment and eroding attacks and reforming the body's constitution at the marrow level. Beyond that, the will of a Grand Martial Master becomes possible to manifest, and it is a phenomenon that transcends pure physical output, and both conditions have to be met simultaneously for that power to activate. It is not simply additive. Our boy turns this over quietly and wonders when he will possess the will of a Grand Martial Master. He does not know yet, but he intends to find out personally. The bus arrives at Ziyun Mountain. Locals are already there watching, and the tournament draws a crowd, though ordinary people can only observe from a distance below. As the students begin the climb, our boy surges ahead of the group and moves at a pace that leaves everyone else in the dust. His internal calculus is already running. A confrontation with the martial saint is likely unavoidable in the near future, and he needs to prepare. And though he has not reached the martial saint realm yet, the journey itself, and fighting through opponents at this tournament and leveling through each encounter is exactly the kind of accelerant he needs. He grins. He tells himself he can keep leveling up through them and eventually become stronger, and perhaps even twist off the head of the martial saint and kick it like a ball. Several minutes later, while everyone was climbing up the mountain through the stairs, Xiao gained momentum and started moving forward first. He left behind all the students who could not keep up with his speed. After a few minutes, once they climbed quite a bit, Xiao placed one leg on the next step and leaned one of his arms on his knee. He slightly turned his head toward the students and ordered them to stop because he was going to make a list. He turned toward them and began counting the students using his fingers. Once he finished counting everyone, he realized that Lu Sheng was not there. He asked the students if Lu Sheng had stayed behind. One of the students who was climbing up the stairs looked into Xiao's eyes and explained to him that Lu Sheng had already gone ahead of them a while ago. He also asked if Xiao had not seen how he climbed up the mountain. Xiao was surprised when he heard that. Then everyone looked ahead and saw that they still had thousands of steps left to climb. There was no trace of Lu Sheng anywhere, and Xiao was astonished because he could not believe that the guy had climbed such a high mountain so quickly. At the same time, at the same altitude as the clouds, several hundred steps higher than Xiao, and the other's two siblings were climbing the stairs. The man with orange hair put a hand on his waist and turned to his sister named Ziyan. He told her that they were going to take a break here to rest a bit before continuing to climb. Ziyan looked into her brother's eyes with confusion and explained that she still had energy. She also asked why they did not just climb all the steps at once. He slightly turned his head toward her, and while looking into her eyes, he explained that since it was her first time on Martial Saint Mountain, there were some rules she did not understand, so he decided to take this opportunity to explain them to her. Ziyan slightly turned her head toward him and looked into his eyes and asked him which rules he was referring to. He explained to her that they had already reached the cloud level, and beyond it were 5 stone steps, which were currently covered by clouds. Both of them looked toward the top of Martial Saint Mountain, and he explained to her that these 5 stone steps were called the path to heaven because climbing them was like ascending to heaven all at once. Just when he was about to explain to her what had happened 2,000 years ago, Ziyan interrupted him. She pointed her finger toward the sky and looked into his eyes and asked him if he could get to the point since she already knew all of that. She also added that now she understood why their father always told her that her older brother was a bit soft. He put one hand behind his head and closed his eyes, and with a smile explained that he just wanted her to regain some energy. Since she was complaining, he decided to get straight to the point. He explained to her that the main point was the great master who had practiced here. He had refined his body with celestial fire and tempered his body with celestial thunder and achieved divine perception and became a great master. He said the entire Martial Saint Mountain still carried his aura as a great master. Any martial artist under 30 years old who came here and had enough talent and climbed the 5 stone stairs in one go without stopping would activate the opportunity that was left behind here. He extended his hands toward the sky and closed his eyes. As the clouds were slowly disappearing and the steps were starting to shine, he explained to her that if something like this were to happen, then a rare celestial and earthly phenomenon would occur. Ziyan looked at her brother with confused eyes and asked him what a celestial and earthly phenomenon was. Just before he could speak, the clouds began to disappear quickly. Both of them turned toward the top of the mountain and started wondering what was happening. When they looked toward the peak of the mountain, they saw that it was starting to shine and was emitting a powerful golden energy. While both were looking toward the peak, he explained to her that this was the phenomenon he had been talking about. He said clouds and fog would stir up and everything would become mysterious and murky. He told her that whoever could trigger a phenomenon like this would ascend to become a master in the future. Just before he could finish speaking, something gigantic appeared above them, and it left them speechless. In the sky, a giant whale appeared that began to emerge from the clouds and started singing. He explained to his sister that this was incredible because the long song of the white whale was the highest category phenomenon. Several seconds later, small whales also appeared next to the giant whale. While both were staring at the sky with a trembling voice, he explained to his sister that this time they could be witnessing history. While Ziyan was looking at the whales, she asked her brother what this meant. He responded that on top of this mountain, there were at least 3 young people who had the potential to become future strong martial masters. She turned her head toward him, and while looking into his eyes with a surprised expression, she asked if there were really 3 martial masters at the top. He turned toward her, and while looking into her eyes, he replied that it was not exactly like that. They only had the power to become martial masters, and he was not sure if they would actually achieve it. He looked toward the whale and explained to her that even so it was quite impressive. Seeing the hope of becoming a great master before 30 years old was an opportunity that very few people had. He also added that the others did not even have a 1 in a million chance. Ziyan started running and slightly turned her head toward him. While looking into his eyes, she asked him to stop talking because she also wanted to give it a try. She wanted to provoke something like the whale too. At that moment, our boy passed by Ziyan at an incredible speed. Neither of them were able to feel his presence at all. He was climbing the stairs at an unbelievable speed, and every time he stepped on a new step, his body emitted an incredible blue energy. Along the way, he left behind a trail of energy. Ziyan turned toward Lu Sheng, and while looking at the trail of energy with eyes full of surprise, she was left speechless. She asked her brother who that person was, and if they were even human. At that moment, a giant golden dragon began to emerge from the mountain and started moving toward the top. Upon seeing this, the man began to tremble. While staring fixedly at the golden dragon and the white whales, he explained to his sister that this dragon was the rise of the sacred dragon, which was capable of devouring everything. Now that he was seeing this with his own eyes, he thought that the legend was real. In the blink of an eye, the sacred dragon caught up to Lu Sheng, and while flying by his side, it started staring into his eyes. As he was climbing the stairs, the young man turned his head toward the sacred dragon and began to wonder what was happening. At first, he only wanted to climb the mountain his way, but as he ascended, he felt a strange sensation slowly emerging from his heart. This sensation was as if in this world only he remained separated from the sky and the earth. At that moment, he looked around and saw that his body was emitting all kinds of energies. He began to wonder how the natural breathing method had activated on its own. He had not done anything special since he simply climbed in a simpler and more direct way. But all of his techniques seemed to be guided by someone or something pulling him up and propelling him forward. When he looked to the side, he saw how the sacred dragon had grabbed the white whales with its hands and was slowly starting to devour them. He became quite confused and began to wonder what was happening. He thought that at first there were 3 whales and now there was a dragon. He did not know if this was some kind of welcoming ceremony. The sacred dragon stopped in front of him, and upon seeing this, he also stopped. While staring into its eyes, he began to wonder what was going on. The sacred dragon began to roar toward Lu Sheng's body, and it left him surprised. He quickly realized that the roar was resonating with his martial will, and came to the conclusion that the dragon possessed a powerful energy. Several minutes later, he reached the peak while his body was surrounded by the sacred dragon. The other students were dumbfounded by what they were seeing. One of the men put his hand on his forehead, and while looking at Lu Sheng, he began to wonder who the hell this man was, and how he had managed to provoke the phenomenon of the sacred dragon. The twin stars from the Supreme Tao had caused the whales' unified song. But upon seeing our boy, all of them realized that they were far below him. Everyone began to wonder where a monster like this had come from. Lu Sheng descended to the ground, and while he was walking, the sacred dragon started flying around him. One of the students told the others that the waves were piling up and the sacred dragon was ascending and everything was submitting before it. An old man with long hair and a beard slightly turned his head toward Lu Sheng. While looking into his eyes, he explained to the others that after so many years on Martial Saint Mountain, this was the first time he had seen such an imposing sight matching the legends. The old man pointed his finger at Lu Sheng and ordered his students to go and find out who he was. One of the students saluted in martial arts style and responded yes, as Lu Sheng walked. Everyone started looking at him and whispering among themselves. They were wondering who he was, and they thought he was a monster. They said that if they had not seen it with their own eyes, they would have thought he was a martial saint in person. One of the students looked more closely at Lu Sheng and noticed that he was wearing the badge of the 7th Saint Martial University. He revealed to everyone that Lu Sheng was one of the 7 saints. Everyone was stunned upon hearing that. The young man simply turned his head to one side, and while holding the backpack, he smiled. One of the students asked the others how the trash from the 7th Saint, which had been useless for 1,000 years, had produced such a monster. Another student told the others that some of the martial saints who had climbed this mountain in the past only caused 1 or 2 visions of white whales when they were young. She looked at her classmate intently in the eyes and asked how it could be that Lu Sheng, who was such a young person, was able to surpass the martial saints 100 times over. A girl with blue hair caught everyone's attention and revealed to them that she knew Lu Sheng. She explained that he was a genius of the 7th Saint Martial University. Everyone was amazed when they heard that. According to them, Lu Sheng was the man who dominated the tower of the martial saints from the 7 universities. Our boy simply stayed silent while listening to the compliments and started walking while being followed by the sacred dragon. He stared straight ahead and called the dragon by its name. He called it Fire Dragon. At the summit of Mount Jian, the clouds were slowly fading away, and several students had gathered together. One of them said he was not surprised at all by Lu Sheng's remarkable strength, since the guy was the most valued disciple of the martial saint. Meanwhile, the girl with blue hair and the student with purple hair had their gazes fixed on Lu Sheng. The boy explained to the others that Lu Sheng's talent was extraordinary and that he had the potential to become a future martial saint. He added that with continued improvement, Lu Sheng could even surpass the martial saint himself. The other students were in pure shock after hearing that. The boy with blue hair turned to the boy with purple hair and asked if Lu Sheng's strength could truly exceed the martial saint's power. The blonde-haired student was curious too and turned toward the boy with purple hair and demanded to know what all of this was about. Just then a gray-haired old man with 2 balls in his grip made his way toward them. This was none other than Grandmaster Qi. He positioned himself in front of the students with his eyes closed and one hand behind his back. He told them that if the temperature decreased by just 1 degree, then water would turn into ice, and if it increased by 1 degree, the result would be vapor. He also pointed out that sometimes the differences in outcome appeared enormous, but the underlying essence was not so different from each other. The 4 students locked their attention on him, but their confusion was obvious because Grandmaster Qi's meaning was unclear to them. The Grandmaster turned his head slightly toward Lu Sheng and said that while Lu Sheng's talent was strong, the exaggeration of it by others was beyond what was warranted. Meanwhile, our boy had both hands tucked in his pockets and just kept walking without giving much attention to the other students at all. Grandmaster Qi then explained that the strange phenomena of Mount Martial Saint were not a specific measurement of one's martial arts talent. He believed that perhaps Lu Sheng's martial arts fortune and the martial saint's fortune had exceptional compatibility, and that was the cause of more phenomena than what others had produced. He suggested that it was even more probable that those before Lu Sheng had already exhausted many of the fortune's opportunities. Lu Sheng's arrival had been at the perfect moment for full activation of the remaining fortune of Martial Saint Mountain. He concluded that only through this combination of circumstances had Lu Sheng's creation of the sacred dragon scene been possible. With his eyes still closed, the Grandmaster challenged the students and asked them whether they truly believed that someone with greater strength than the Martial Saint could exist. He reminded them that the Martial Saint held the position of God in this world, and no one's power was above his. Everyone stayed silent, and nobody interrupted Grandmaster Qi. The boy with blue hair made a fist and struck it against his palm and firmly agreed with the Grandmaster. He said the existence of someone stronger than the Martial Saint was impossible. The blonde-haired boy responded with a comparison to food. He said the sensation of fullness was not solely the result of the last bite. Grandmaster Qi turned slightly toward the girl with blue hair and smiled. He assessed that based on the aura Lu Sheng had just displayed, the superiority of his talent and strength over those in his age group was undeniable. The girl nodded in agreement. The Grandmaster added that Lu Sheng deserved his status as someone highly valued by the Martial Saint given his exceptional qualities. The girl then shifted her attention to Lu Sheng and put one hand under her chin. She was concerned that Lu Sheng's commotion would have sent the Supreme Tao Martial Academy into a state of panic. As nightfall arrived, everyone made their way to the mountain hotel. Inside, a man slammed his fist on the table with force and demanded an explanation. This was the martial instructor from the Supreme Tao named Lian Jibei. He had his left fist clenched on the table and his other hand on his waist. He accused the students of being an embarrassment to him. He said Lu Sheng's phenomenon was nothing more than a minor occurrence, and everyone's reaction had been one of excessive anxiety. He pointed one finger at all the students while his other hand stayed on the table. He said Lu Sheng's rank was not even that of a great master, and at most his talent was slightly above average. He reminded them that they were the main elite of the Supreme Tao Martial Academy, and asked why their fear of a fresh graduate from a lesser academy was so great. Everyone stayed silent and no one gave a response. Several seconds later, one of the students stepped forward while twirling a strand of hair around his finger. He said Instructor Lian's assessment was correct. This was Chao Qin, and he was one of the twin stars of the Supreme Tao. He put one hand on his shoulder and the other on his waist, and declared that Lu Sheng's current level was not that of a great master. He added that even if Lu Sheng's talent was exceptional, it was only useful for the future and not the present. He was confident that with the deployment of his secret techniques and an all-out assault, Lu Sheng's defeat would be certain. The other twin star Chao Qing also approached the group. He had one hand in his pocket and the other gripping his jacket. He stated that the determination of martial arts strength was not through flashy displays. Chao Qing simply smiled with his hands on his hips and said nothing. Chao Qing tightened his fist and smugly declared that if Lu Sheng was standing before him right now, the beating would be immediate. Instructor Lian approached them with both fists clenched and praised them. He said this was exactly the energy the twin stars of the Supreme Tao Martial Academy should possess. His hand moved to a position in front of his chest and evil energy started radiating from his body. He proposed the arrangement of a little game. His instruction was that during the tournament whichever team discovered Lu Sheng first should eliminate him on stage. He assured them that the handling of the Seven Saints would be his personal responsibility. At the same time, in the Transcendence Academy lounge, the girl with blue hair was sitting on the couch with her phone in hand. Her screen displayed Lu Sheng's photo and she could not resist her growing admiration for him. A blush spread across her face while her thoughts were consumed by him. Then her brother approached with a hand on his waist and asked if her focus on Lu Sheng was a source of worry for her. She raised her head slightly and looked surprised. He extended his palm and smiled and reassured her that Lu Sheng's strength was unclear, but their estimation was that his body refinement with martial arts will had not yet begun. He reminded her that a match against Lu Sheng would be unfavorable for him, and her true targets should be the twin stars of the Supreme Tao Martial Academy. He pointed his finger toward the ceiling as green energy radiated from his body, and explained that the twin stars had condensed their martial will 2 years ago. That placed them at the quasi-grandmaster stage. Her response while holding the phone with both hands and looking at the floor was a simple acknowledgement. Her brother was confused by her behavior. He clenched both fists and warned her not to be deceived by visions. He added that even if the mountain's predictions held truth, nothing was absolute. He mentioned that despite Lu Sheng's considerable talent, the possibility existed that he would not measure up to her, and the claim that his strength exceeded hers was difficult to support. But her attention stayed fixed on Lu Sheng's photo on her screen, and she completely dismissed her brother's words. She reflected internally that since childhood she had possessed a special talent that allowed her to perceive ghosts and spirits. Just moments ago, during Lu Sheng's ascent, she saw a dense black mist behind him that covered the entire Martial Saint Mountain. She was not sure whether it had been nothing more than a hallucination. At the same time, in the hotel reception area, the topic of conversation among students from various academies was Lu Sheng. A student with orange hair had his hand on his waist and his other hand extended to the side. He exclaimed that this was the power of Demon Lord Lu Sheng. Another student walking beside his classmate turned with a smile and commented that Lu Sheng's phenomena had been of an unprecedented nature. Another student clenched his fist and smiled, and confidently predicted that Lu Sheng's victory in the tournament was a certainty. His companion agreed with equal enthusiasm and praised Lu Sheng as an incredible individual. While those two were talking, a red-haired student had his arms crossed and was silently observing them with an intense look. He thought to himself that his decision not to rush into a confrontation with Lu Sheng had been fortunate. Otherwise, the martial arts confidence he had built over 4 years at the academy would have suffered complete destruction. Just then, Lu Sheng appeared in a hood and remarked that the red-haired student was now a walking example. The student turned toward our boy with silent acknowledgement. He was aware that the magnitude of Lu Sheng's energy and willpower required for such a phenomenon was beyond his comprehension. He also pointed out that sometimes the differences in outcome appeared enormous, but the underlying essence was not so different from each other. The 4 students locked their attention on him, but their confusion was obvious because Grandmaster Chi's meaning was unclear to them. His conclusion was swift. Another confrontation with Lu Sheng would give him no different result from their previous encounter. Lu Sheng's response to all the praise was a closed-eyed sigh with his head lowered. He was clearly distracted by something. Then a hand landed on his shoulder with the advice not to waste himself. This was the old principal of the 4th Academy. The young man was surprised at the principal's presence. The old principal kept his hand on Lu Sheng's shoulder and told him that the better course of action was to forget about it and maintain focus on his own path. He explained further with a hand behind his back that their 7 universities were one entity, and considering Lu Sheng as an opponent was unnecessary. The red-haired student agreed and said the old principal's wisdom was correct since Lu Sheng's presence would make this martial arts tournament an exciting one. The old principal gradually departed with a slight turn of his head. He remarked that this was the 7 Saints' opportunity to achieve first place. Lu Sheng removed his hood and left both hands in his pockets and stayed silent. The old principal turned his head back one more time as he walked further away and thought to himself that Lu Sheng's transformation into a dragon was inevitable. Then Xiao arrived at the hotel reception with his gaze fixed on Lu Sheng. He was internally frustrated that Lu Sheng did not understand his message despite its clarity. His point had been that as long as Lian's elimination was carried out by Lu Sheng's hand, then regardless of the consequences with the Supreme Tao Martial Academy, the Martial Saint's protection would cover everything. He observed that now that Lu Sheng had arrived at Mount Jihan, the Martial Saint's interest was only in watching his attitude. Xiao approached from behind with an intense stare and thought to himself that Lu Sheng had ultimately chosen the wrong path. At that moment, powerful golden energy started pouring out of Lu Sheng's body. He looked down at his hand and wondered what was happening to him. He quickly realized that the energy entering his body had not only resulted in a significant increase in his strength. He stared at the ground and discovered a giant whale image appearing there. He asked himself if this could be the whale from an earlier absorption. He decided that if that was the case, then the naming of this power was appropriate. Without hesitation, our boy activated the divine whale power with his eyes closed. The white whale spirit appeared in his mind, and he understood that this was the power of martial arts dharma. Every movement he made could create resonance with the forces of heaven and earth. But while Lu Sheng was focused on that, he detected a murderous aura immediately. He turned quickly and spotted instructor Lian among the crowd, with a killer expression on his face. Lian Jibei's intense stare was locked onto Lu Sheng. The young man returned the gaze and assessed that Lian was the team leader as expected, with the powerful energy of a great 8th-level master. He calculated that a fight against Lian would give him a maximum of 30% chance of victory, and that was only within his martial god state's 1-minute duration. He was uncertain about what would happen once that state reached its end. But he was confident about something. If his advancement to Grandmaster level was achieved with his energy and vitality condensed into a core, and he entered the martial god state, then Lian Jibei's defeat would come in less than 20 seconds. A smile emerged on his face as he became aware that many gazes had settled upon him. He kept his hands in his pockets and continued walking. He stared at Lian Jibei with calm patience and decided to let the script he had written unfold step by step. If anyone refused to cooperate, then their destruction would be carried out by his own hands. The competition venue is packed. Camera crews are scrambling to finish setup, and someone checks whether the whole thing will be broadcast live. The answer is yes, and it is nearly complete and about to go official. A cameraman mutters that he arrived a bit late and missed capturing some spectacular phenomena earlier that morning, though he managed to get a few shots. The event typically runs 2 or 3 days, so there is still plenty to film. The host steps forward. His name is Jiang He, and he is the main organizer of the event and presides under the authority of the revered martial saint Tan Zhongshu. He formally declares the National University Martial Arts Competition open and says groupings and matchups will be decided by drawing lots. Our boy draws number 0135 and wonders quietly what kind of opponent he will get. He does not wait long. A broad-shouldered young man approaches and is nervous and a little starstruck and introduces himself. His last name is also Liu, and his given name is Ming, and he is from Dongshan Martial University. Both their names share the character meaning now, and he smiles awkwardly and says it is nice to meet him. Before our boy can respond, a small group arrives. They are from some Eastern martial school and are 2 junior disciples in fact, and have heard of our boy's reputation, and came specifically to greet him. One of them is clearly dazzled and says that after witnessing the morning's phenomena for the first time in his life, he felt an immovable and overwhelming pressure just from our boy's gaze, and that it was like standing at the edge of an abyss and gave him goosebumps, and that it was like our boy was simply beyond reach. His companion chimes in practically and says that the distance between a martial saint and a martial hero is not measured in 10 or 20 years, and is an entirely different dimension. Our boy processes all of this with his usual calm. He observes internally that men who come from martial arts universities like this one and are trained under real structure and pushed to their limits in real battles will never make excuses in a loss, and that the word defeat simply is not in their vocabulary. Martial Academy disciples have an edge over university students when it comes to martial arts because of tougher training environments and no resource limits, while university students tend to enjoy better overall conditions and support. Academy disciples, on the other hand, pay for every resource they consume, and that is probably why the gap between the two systems has held steady for 30 years. 10 minutes later, the first round begins. 3 martial academies have sent no contestants, so those slots are awarded as automatic advances. The numbers are called. Our boy's slot 0135 gets matched up. But before his fight can begin, something happens on the platform next door. The Sea Dragon's senior brother is already in action and landing clean and efficient strikes, and his juniors cheer. They say he is definitely making the top 100 that year. His opponent is stubborn but outmatched. One of the sideline commentators notes that it is only natural because after joining a martial academy, disciples receive the best resources that talent or effort can buy, and losing to them is simply what happens. Someone grumbles that if he were the same age, he would not stand a chance. Then our boy's match is called. Number 0135, Lu Sheng versus number 0247, Zhang Yuan. Zhang Yuan takes one look at who he is facing. He says he surrenders and that he will not fight. The referee blinks. The crowd goes silent for a moment and then erupts. Zhang Yuan is already walking off the platform and mutters that the Demon King's punch nearly collapsed his martial soul just from the shockwave during the morning phenomena, and that he has absolutely no interest in a death wish and no chance of winning, and that he is out. Our boy stands on the platform and is mildly surprised and advances to the next round without throwing a single strike. Somewhere in the stands, a sharp-eyed man with an intricate tattoo on his shaved head watches the whole thing unfold. He laces his fingers together and murmurs to himself that so this is the one who has taken on that mission. Our boy's slot 0135 gets matched up, but before his fight can begin, something happens on the platform next door. The Sea Dragon's senior brother is already in action and landing clean and efficient strikes, and his juniors cheer. They say he is definitely making the top 100 that year. His opponent is stubborn but outmatched. One of the sideline commentators notes that it is only natural because after joining a martial academy, disciples receive the best resources that talent or effort can buy, and losing to them is simply what happens. Someone grumbles that if he were the same age, he would not stand a chance. Then our boy's match is called. Number 0135, Lu Sheng versus number 0247, Zhang Yuan. Zhang Yuan takes one look at who he is facing. He says he surrenders and that he will not fight. The referee blinks. The crowd goes silent for a moment and then erupts. Zhang Yuan is already walking off the platform and mutters that the Demon King's punch nearly collapsed his martial soul just from the shockwave during the morning phenomena, and that he has absolutely no interest in a death wish and no chance of winning, and that he is out. Our boy stands on the platform and is mildly surprised and advances to the next round without throwing a single strike. Somewhere in the stands, a sharp-eyed man with an intricate tattoo on his shaved head watches the whole thing unfold. He laces his fingers together and murmurs to himself that so this is the one who has taken on that mission. The third round of selections is about to begin across multiple arenas simultaneously. The crowd is massive and the atmosphere is electric. Our boy rolls his shoulders and steps toward the pen. But before he even reaches the arena, someone bumps into him from behind, and it is hard enough to be deliberate. A green-haired punk from another school gets in his face immediately and demands to know if that was him, and calls him a brat, and asks if he is looking for trouble. Our boy does not even dignify it with words. Starting a fight in this setting would be deliberately seeking conflict, so he simply walks away and leaves the green-haired punk flying through the air behind him without anyone quite seeing how it happened. He reaches his arena. The referee calls for his opponent, and the name is Jiang Long from Nanlong Martial Arts Academy. No response. No show. The referee announces a forfeit after a brief wait. Apparently Jiang Long is the same person our boy sent flying in the corridor moments earlier. No match needed. Lu Sheng advances. Someone nearby mutters that it is quite a surprise. The third round wraps up quickly. The field is now down to the contestants who will enter the real finals. Our boy punches through to the fourth round. The crowd buzzes and says Lu Sheng from 7th Saint is really strong and that even last year's top 20 could not withstand a single move from him. Someone half jokes that going up against him would require their trump card just to stay in the conversation, but that at his level even trump cards probably are not enough, and that making the top 4 would still be a waste of his ability. From the stands, a figure observes quietly. His read is that Lu Sheng is the real deal, but that the only genuine challenge ahead of him will come from the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy's representative, and that everyone else will be insufficient. And if Lu Sheng keeps advancing, there might even be a chance to grab something valuable from him along the way. A blue-haired observer from Sea Dragon watches with different eyes. To ordinary spectators, our boy looks only slightly stronger than average. But through this person's perception and something sharper and more attuned, what they see is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. They quietly hope that if they end up facing him at the end, at least the surrender will not be too humiliating. 4 hours later comes the 7th round. Whoever wins this round enters the national top 10. Our boy's opponent is Wang Xin, and he is also from 7th Saint, as it turns out. Someone notes that Wang Xin ordered our boy around back at university. Our boy wonders briefly if he should go a little easier on him. Wang Xin has no such hesitation. He does not think reputation alone means anything and says strength is what matters and that he intends to demonstrate his. The match begins. Our boy tells him to make the first move. Wang Xin finds that irritating. He detonates. The crowd erupts and his attack strength is registering at martial master peak levels and far beyond what a martial hero should have been capable of outputting. He has activated a secret technique to temporarily amplify his power. The commentary confirms it and says that with this burst he probably will not be able to continue fighting after this battle, and that he is burning everything on one exchange. Wang Xin grins through the flames. His secret technique is blood ignition, and it increases his strength by over 50%, and using it on Liu Sheng is worth the month-long recovery it will cost him. He unleashes his full combination, and it is blood ignition into frenzy triple slash into coiling vortex. The referee calls for it to stop and says it is too dangerous. Wang Xin screams through it that he will defeat him. Our boy absorbs everything. Then almost gently he asks if he had not told him to go all out. He explains almost academically that even when a hare hunts a rabbit it uses all its strength, and that any secret technique and any impressive move and any trump card should all be brought out. Wang Xin stares and is barely standing and has just thrown literally everything he had at this person. He says he is going all out and asks if our boy is blind and says he has even used his trump card. He collapses. Liu Sheng wins. Wang Xin is flat on the ground and he is not moving at all. Our boy just stands there and looks down at him with a puzzled expression on his face. He thinks to himself that he barely used any strength, and he did not even use techniques like stellar impact. He cannot understand how this guy went down so fast, then he just shrugs it off. He already showed Wang Xin enough courtesy and gave him a fair fight. The man lost fair and square, so he only has himself to blame for that. But the crowd does not share his calm reaction at all. The whole arena goes absolutely wild. Liu Sheng from 7th Saint has advanced to the finals, and chants of Demon King start rippling through the stands. Girls in the audience are swooning over how cool and untouchable the young man looks, just sitting there between his rounds. Someone in the crowd mutters that the Demon King title is a bit much for a university student. But another voice shuts that down fast and says the Supreme Dao twins are no ordinary geniuses. 2 years of training, and who knows how much they have grown since then. Far away in the stands, an older observer is watching quietly. He thinks to himself that this is expected of a talented seedling recognized by the martial saint Tan Zhengshu. This one truly defies common sense. He also notices that Wang Xin did not use his ultimate technique and did not use his full strength either. He thinks Wang Xin is a fool. He had a little hope for the guy, but Wang Xin just wasted it all. Meanwhile, the tattooed figure from before has already drawn his own conclusion. He figures that the stronger Liu Sheng appears, the more glorious their eventual victory over him will be, and the blue-haired observer from Sea Dragon is watching our boy from a distance too. She is studying the dark shadows that are spreading outward from him. Something about his aura feels deeply unsettling to her. Those shadows seem to swallow the light around him whole, and she cannot look away from it. Then night falls over the mountain. The rounds have wrapped up fast that day. Our boy is lying in his room and thinking ahead to the finals tomorrow. He finds himself genuinely curious about something. He wonders what it will actually feel like to fight a Grand Martial Master for real. He files that thought away and reaches for his phone. Notifications start flooding in right away. His group chat is alive with friends messaging him. They are telling him that the tournament is being broadcast live on television, and apparently it is on par with the Winter Olympics in terms of coverage. Someone in the chat tells him not to let his mom watch tomorrow's match if he cares about her nerves at all. Then his mom messages him separately. She tells him she already heard about it and she cannot stop the broadcast anyway, so she is going to be watching tomorrow no matter what. More messages keep piling in after that. Liu Qiming is calling him insane, and Qin Xiaojun is going wild over some clips that are going viral online. Then the young man sees a name that makes him pause. Dong Qingxie. He stares at the message for a moment. Then he looks at the moon outside the window. He thinks to himself that it looks like a lovely evening, and decides to go for a walk. So he steps outside. It is around -20 degrees, and the mountain air is sharp and cold. But the stars are stunning that night, and the sky is clear enough to see the Milky Way stretching across the whole sky. Just then he hears footsteps behind him. He turns around quick. A blue-haired girl freezes mid-step, and she looks startled half to death, just from his gaze snapping toward her. Our boy blinks and wonders to himself if he is really that terrifying. He just stands there under the open sky, and then something shifts in the atmosphere around him. The dark fog that has been quietly coming off his body starts expanding outward. It moves slow and immense, and it keeps growing until it seems to swallow the stars and the moon and the entire sky whole. The blue-haired girl just stares at him. She is transfixed and horrified at the same time. The black fog around the guy has actually swallowed up the sun and the moon and the stars completely. She cannot help but wonder what kind of monster Liu Sheng could possibly be. The next day it was time for lunch, and all the students went to the cafeteria where there was a buffet. Each person could choose the food that was on display. Several minutes later it was Liu Sheng's turn. He approached the buffet counter, and while he was looking at the woman serving the food, he started pointing at several dishes. He told her that he wanted all of it. The woman had a ladle in one hand and began to look at him. She was surprised when she saw how much food he wanted. While the woman was putting food on the plate, our boy turned his head to the side and saw something that caught his attention. Behind him there was a pillar, and the girl with blue hair was spying on him from the corner. He slightly turned his head to the side, and upon seeing the girl he began to wonder what she was trying to do. At the same time, a black-haired student wearing a hood who was carrying his tray of food to the table was surrounded by several students who started smiling. The student became somewhat confused and asked them what this meant. He also asked them to let him pass. One of the students was Chao Chen. He stood in front of the black-haired student, and while his body emitted a powerful energy, he began to stare at the guy. With a smug smile, he advised him to pray not to encounter him in combat today. The black-haired student simply remained silent. Then with an aggressive look, he started staring at Chao Chen and thought about the rumors about him. Every time someone faced him, they ended up seriously injured, and some even came close to death. While Chao Qian's body was emitting a powerful energy, he approached the student, and while staring into his eyes, he began to smile. He revealed that when he started attacking, he did not hold back at all. The student became somewhat confused upon hearing this. With an aggressive look, he started staring into Chao Qian's eyes and asked him what he was up to. Chao Qian moved away from him and clenched his fist tightly and began to smile. While the two of them were talking, someone who was carrying their tray of food to the table started approaching them. This person was none other than Lu Sheng. As he held the tray of food with both hands and ate a chicken leg, he bumped into Chao Qian, who immediately got scared. Chao Qian became furious as he slowly turned his head back and started shouting. He asked who was responsible for this. Once he turned around, he saw that the person who had collided with him was Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng was eating a chicken leg, and he slightly turned his head back and began staring at Chao Qian. Chao Qian approached him, and while giving him a deadly stare, he made a throat-cutting gesture. He told Lu Sheng that he would not be able to escape either. Upon seeing this, Lu Sheng began to remove the bone from his mouth using his hand and simply remained silent. Chao Qian started looking to the side with a smug smile and advised Lu Sheng to surrender right away. While Chao Qian was distracted, Lu Sheng quickly moved his hand closer. While holding the food tray with one hand, he grabbed Chao Qian's neck with the other and lifted him off the ground. Little by little, the young man began to strangle him, and Chao Qian started panicking. Lu Sheng simply turned his head toward him and silently watched. All the other students were shocked upon seeing this scene. Due to the force with which Lu Sheng was holding Chao Qian's neck, he slowly started bleeding from his mouth. With the little strength he had left, Chao Qian turned his head toward Lu Sheng and asked what he was doing. While Lu Sheng's body emitted a powerful blue energy, he stared fixedly at Chao Qian with a murderous look in his eyes. He asked if Chao Qian was trying to threaten him or give him orders. Little by little, Chao Qian began to lose consciousness and thought he was going to die. Due to the force with which Lu Sheng was choking him, he started sweating and foam began to come out of his mouth. At that moment, someone gave Lu Sheng the order to stop. This person's body emitted a powerful green aura, and it was none other than Lian Jibei. He gathered momentum and took a big leap and quickly advanced toward Lu Sheng. Little by little, Lian Jibei's aura began to create pressure in the atmosphere. He clenched his fists tightly, and with a serious look, he started staring at Lu Sheng. He gave him the order to release Chao Qian. He approached Lu Sheng and crossed his arms, and while staring at him intently, he reminded him that the tournament had not yet begun. He also added that if Lu Sheng wanted to be disqualified, then he should just continue attacking Chao Qian. While Lu Sheng was choking Chao Qian with one hand and holding the food tray with the other, he started staring into Lian Jibei's eyes. He remained lost in thought for several seconds. Then he released Chao Qian's neck, and Chao Qian slowly fell to the ground. Our boy closed his eyes, and with a smile he told Lian Jibei that he was just joking. Chao Qian fell to his knees on the ground. While he had one hand supported on the floor, with the other hand he started touching his neck. He closed his eyes, and while catching his breath, he called Lu Sheng a damn brat. While holding the food tray with one hand, Lu Sheng placed the other hand on Chao Qian's shoulder. While Lu Sheng's body emitted a powerful aura, he leaned his head toward Chao Qian, and with a murderous look advised him to go home to his mother. After saying this, Lu Sheng left. Lian Jibei put his hands behind his back, and as he slowly distanced himself from Chao Qian, he turned his head to the side. He asked Chao Qian to get up and not make a fool of himself. Chao Qian, who was sitting on the ground with one hand supporting his throat, turned his head toward Lian Jibei and was somewhat surprised. He quickly stood up and approached Lian Jibei. He extended his hand toward him and asked him to wait, because he was going to explain what had happened. Instead of listening to what he had to say, Lian Jibei simply kept walking and started looking down at the ground. As they were moving away, Lu Sheng simply put one hand in his pants pocket and stayed watching. One of the students turned their head toward the others and revealed that Lu Sheng had just eliminated the demonic star of the Supreme Tao's twin stars in the blink of an eye. The other student turned his head toward him and with a surprised look began to wonder how strong Lu Sheng really was. He asked if Lu Sheng had already become a master. Another student approached and also became astonished. He asked his friend if the demonic star Chao Qian had really not been able to resist even a little against Lu Sheng. While eating the chicken leg, Lu Sheng started looking at Chao Qian and Lian Jibei. He thought that if he fought them in front of everyone, he would become a fugitive and put his family in danger. He decided to endure a little longer since the moment would soon come. Chao Qian and Lian Jibei went to the martial arts gymnasium. Lian Jibei asked Chao Qian for an explanation. In this room were all the students from the Supreme Tao Academy. Chao Qian lowered his head and apologized to Lian Jibei. He said he did not expect Lu Sheng to suddenly attack him, and it had been a surprise attack. Lian Jibei simply started staring at the ground and remained silent. Seeing this, Chao Qian explained that if he had just had a moment to react to the attack, the outcome would have been different. At that moment, Chao Qing appeared. While he had his hands in his pants pockets, he began to approach them. While he was staring at Chao Qian, he started to smile and called him useless. The other students were surprised by this. Chao Qian became furious upon hearing his mockery. He turned his head toward Chao Qing and while giving him a furious look, he clenched his teeth tightly. He asked if Chao Qing could repeat what he just said. He stood up and approached Chao Qing and grabbed him by the collar and stared into his eyes. He told him that he was going to get back at him first. Chao Qing did not even try to defend himself. While he kept his hands in his pants pockets, he began to stare at Chao Qian. He said Chao Qian had been beaten and now came here to take revenge on his own comrades, so he called him useless again. Just before the fight was about to start, Lian Jibei told the two of them that it was enough already. Both turned their heads aside upon hearing his voice. Lian Jibei began to approach them and ordered Chao Qian to solve this by himself for bringing shame upon the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy. After saying this, Lian Jibei put his hands behind his back and turned his body to one side and started moving away from them. Chao Qian quickly lowered his head before him and reassured him not to worry. He said he would not make the same mistake again. Several minutes later, once everyone left the room, Chao Qian started looking down at the floor with an aggressive gaze. He clenched his teeth tightly, and as his body trembled, he thought about Lu Sheng. To vent his anger, he forcefully stomped on the ground, and it broke into pieces. He clenched his fist tightly and gritted his teeth and swore to make Lu Sheng pay with his life. An hour later, everyone went to the stadium and took their seats. At the same time, Lu Sheng met up with Xiao and some other teachers. While Xiao had his hands behind his back, he explained to Lu Sheng that the twin stars from the Supreme Tao had dominated the National Martial Arts Championship for many editions. He also added that one should not underestimate their ability. Although Lu Sheng had previously had an advantage, Xiao advised him not to let his guard down once he was in the ring. Lu Sheng simply smiled and responded that he understood. After this, our boy put his hands in his pants pockets and started walking away from them. Everyone turned their heads toward him and simply remained silent. The man wearing a hood told the others that Lu Sheng was too calm so there would not be any problem. The man wearing glasses turned his head toward Xiao and told him that this time the trophy would be theirs. The girl simply closed her eyes and started smiling. While Xiao was watching Lu Sheng move away from them, he simply remained silent. He slightly lowered his head and closed his eyes, and began to wonder how in this situation Lu Sheng planned to confront the martial saint. Several minutes later, the draw for the 8th round of fights began. The announcer brought the drawing box, and Lu Sheng approached him and put his hand inside the box. Once he took out the ticket, he started staring at it. Upon seeing who his opponent was, he could not help but smile. The announcer held the microphone with one hand and raised the other in the sky. He closed his eyes and caught the attention of the audience. He announced that the final fight of the 8th round was between the saint from the continent of 7 saints and Chao Qian from the Supreme Tao Academy. While Lu Sheng held the ticket in his hand, he simply remained silent. People became somewhat confused upon hearing the matchup. A man with long hair clenched his fists and while looking toward the stage, told his friend that he could not believe it. He began to wonder if the organizer had done it on purpose. The man with blue hair extended his hand and told his friend that this was a true enmity. A blue-haired student told his friend that this morning Lu Sheng had defeated Chao Qian with a single blow, so the winner of the fight was already decided. His friend replied that was not necessarily the case. He said it was said that Lu Sheng had attacked him by surprise and caught Chao Qian off guard. While Lu Sheng had his hands in his pants pockets and was waiting for the fights to begin, a man started approaching him. Upon noticing his presence, Lu Sheng turned his head toward him. This person was none other than Chao Qian. While he was staring aggressively at Lu Sheng, he clenched his teeth and fist and approached him. He called Lu Sheng the 7 Saints' disciple and told him to prepare to die. Lu Sheng simply placed his hand under his chin and began mocking him. After this, he continued to stare at Chao Qian and made a throat-cutting gesture. Chao Qian became even more enraged upon seeing this. He tightly clenched his fist and told Lu Sheng that he was going to kill him. At that moment, the announcer caught everyone's attention. He reached out his hand toward the sky and asked all participants who were not in the current battle to leave the arena for now. The first confrontation between the representative from the 4th Martial Saints University and the opponent from the Celestial Star Academy was about to begin. Both fighters started approaching the ring. The vice principal asked the boy wearing the hood to give his best regardless of the outcome. The boy responded that he understood. He clenched his fists tightly, and as he approached the ring, he thought that Chao Ching was not someone who could be easily messed with. This could be an intense fight. As he got closer, Lu Sheng simply began looking at him and started smiling. The young man caught his attention and asked him not to worry. The boy turned his head toward Lu Sheng and was somewhat surprised because he did not know why Lu Sheng was worried about him. While Lu Sheng's body was emitting a powerful energy, he told the boy that if he were to die, then he would take care of avenging him. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's words, the boy was surprised because he did not know why Lu Sheng was concerned about him. He closed his eyes and bid farewell to Lu Sheng with a wave of his hand. He thanked him with a smile for caring about him. Lu Sheng also closed his eyes and bid farewell to him with a wave of his hand. He replied with a smile that there was no need to thank him or be so polite, since they were from the same university. The boy placed one foot on the ring and slowly began to climb up. In the ring was Chao Ching, who had his arms crossed and was eagerly waiting for him. Once he stepped onto the ring, the crowd went wild and started cheering him on. With a killer look in his eyes, the boy stared intensely at Chao Ching. While his body emitted a powerful energy, he simply sighed. Several seconds later, he and Chao Ching started staring at each other motionless. The announcer informed everyone that the fight was about to begin, and the audience started cheering them on. While Chao Ching's body was emanating a suffocating energy, he began to stare at the boy. With a smile, he told him that he was not going to give him the opportunity to surrender. Upon hearing this, the boy slowly unsheathed his sword. Then he gained momentum and started advancing quickly toward Chao Ching. He held the sword with both hands, and while approaching him, he told Chao Ching that he could prove himself. Chao Ching crossed his arms and remained silent. As the boy gradually approached him, Chao Ching simply started staring into his eyes and began to smile. The boy attacked Chao Ching with the sword, but Chao Ching simply moved his head to one side and dodged the attack. Upon seeing this, the boy tightly gripped the sword and gained momentum. He took a big leap, and while staring fiercely at Chao Ching, he began to advance quickly toward him. As he was slowly getting closer, Chao Ching simply stood still. The boy began to attack Chao Ching with a chain of cuts, but Chao Ching just put his hands in his pants pockets and started dodging the attacks as if nothing was happening. Seeing this, the boy became frustrated and stepped back several meters. While holding the sword with one hand, he supported the other on the ground. While staring fixedly at Chao Ching, he clenched his teeth tightly and was surprised to see that Chao Ching had been able to dodge all his attacks. He did not know how this was possible. The spectators were amazed by what they were seeing. A boy with blue hair asked his friend if the fighter had really taken his skill to this level. While the man was looking toward the ring, he was left speechless. He explained to his friend that only those who were close to mastery could achieve such a feat, and for him this was terrifying. Little by little, the boy's body began to emit a powerful ice energy. He started gripping the sword with both hands, and while looking at the ground, he sighed. Seeing that Chao Ching was good at dodging attacks, he asked him to try dodging the next one. He gripped the sword with both hands, and while breathing, he started looking at Chao Ching and prepared himself. He plunged the sword forcefully into the ground and used the sealing ability called Extreme Ice. At that moment, his sword grabbed part of the ring and an icicle attacked Chao Ching and pierced his body. He lifted his head, and upon seeing the icicle lodged in Chao Ching's body, he was surprised. He began to wonder if he had succeeded. But upon closer inspection, he saw that Chao Ching's body disappeared and left only a pile of dust. His expression changed drastically upon seeing this. He was terrified as he realized that everything was a distraction. Chao Ching appeared in front of him and summoned some spirits that began to attack him. While the boy writhed in pain, Chao Ching unsheathed his dagger and started approaching him. The boy had fallen right into his trap. Chao Ching mocked him and asked if this was all he knew how to do. While the boy was writhing in pain, Chao Ching stared at him intently and could not help but smile. Chao Ching attacked him using the dagger. While the dagger was emitting a powerful energy, he stabbed him in the ribs and his body was propelled backward. Due to the force with which Chao Ching had attacked him, his body flew out of the ring and crashed onto the ground. Meanwhile, Chao Ching was holding the dagger in his hand and simply staring at him silently. Quickly, doctors and people nearby started approaching him to see if he was okay. While blood was coming out of his mouth, two men approached him and helped him sit down. While one of the men was staring at him intently, he explained to his companion that the boy was seriously injured with 4 broken ribs and fractures in his limbs. At that moment, our boy appeared. While he had both hands in his pants pockets, he began to approach them. Upon seeing Lu Sheng, Chao Qing began to stare at him and with a smile told him that it was now his turn. Lu Sheng approached the fallen fighter and placed his hand on his shoulder. He slightly lowered his body and while looking into his eyes he started to smile and thanked him for his effort. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, the boy turned his head upward. Blood was dripping from his mouth as he clenched his teeth tightly. While looking at Lu Sheng, he started to wonder what was happening. Lu Sheng stood up and as his body emitted a powerful and fierce energy, he began to stare at Chao Qing. At that moment, a golden lion appeared and started roaring. He told him that it was a pity that his teammate had not been more injured in the fight. He said that if that had happened, then he would have had a reason to kill Chao Qing. Then the announcer caught everyone's attention and informed them that the next round was between Zhang Yu from the Transcendence Martial Academy against Fang Kong from the Fire Dragon Martial Academy. Several minutes later, Zhang Yu stepped into the ring. She closed her eyes and began to meditate. While she had her eyes closed, she extended her hands toward her opponent. Slowly, her body started to be surrounded by a layer of energy. Her opponent took several steps back, and while staring at her intently, he clenched his fists tightly. Upon seeing that she was a calm girl, he began to wonder if she was dangerous. She opened her eyes, and as her body emitted a powerful energy, she extended her hands toward him. Little by little, hands made of spiritual energy began to rapidly advance toward him. Upon seeing this, he became confused and surprised at the same time. He assumed an offensive stance and tightened his fist. As his fist emitted a powerful golden spiritual energy, he looked toward her with a smile and asked her to wait because he was going to show her his best technique. Using his fist, he struck the hand made of spiritual energy controlled by Zhang Yu with all his strength. Several seconds passed and nothing happened. Upon closer inspection, he saw that his attack had not worked at all. As the spiritual hand slowly approached him, he was shocked and began to wonder why his attack had failed. In a matter of seconds, the spiritual hands reached him and trapped his body. Gradually, the hands began to squeeze and stretch his body, and it caused him terrible pain. Due to the intense pain, he started screaming and feeling as if his body was about to break. Upon hearing this, she deactivated her ability and lowered her head and closed her eyes and sighed. With his last bit of strength, he turned his head toward her, and while staring at her intently, he begged her to let go because he surrendered. The referee was surprised upon seeing this. While he was looking at her with a surprised look, he raised his hand in the air and informed everyone that Zhang Yu from the Transcendence Martial Arts Academy was the winner. He also added that Fang Kong's iron forged strength would not last much longer against someone like her. Near the ring, there were several students watching the fight, and they were all astonished. One of them told the others that Zhang Yu's martial arts skills were truly strong. He thought that based on her psychic energy right now, she was at least a level 4 psychic mentalist. Another student explained to the others that the gap between them was too big. While the young man was staring at Zhang Yu, who was standing in the ring, he began to smile and thought that her psychic power was about 2 points higher than expected. Zhang Yu turned her head back and saw Lu Sheng among the crowd. Without thinking twice, she turned her back on him and started running. Seeing this, Lu Sheng became somewhat confused and started wondering why she was running away again. Her reaction was similar to others he had seen before. He began to wonder why her first reaction upon seeing him was to flee. He also began to wonder if he looked too evil. Several minutes later, the announcer caught everyone's attention and informed them that the next round was the final round. He announced that the final round was between Chao Qian from the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy and Lu Sheng from the 7th St. Martial University. Chao Qian began to make his way through the crowd. While he stared aggressively at Lu Sheng, he started approaching the ring. Our boy put both hands in his pockets and also started approaching the ring. Seeing that their fight was about to begin, the spectators thought that this fight was going to be exciting, unlike the previous ones that had lasted too little. Lu Sheng placed his hand on the ring and gained momentum and climbed up. While he had his hand supported on the ground, he looked forward and saw Chao Qian also climb into the ring. Chao Qian stood up and while staring at Lu Sheng intently, he extended his hand. He explained that according to rule number 32 of the National Martial Arts Championship, if during the competition one killed their opponent under reasonable circumstances, they would not be held responsible for anything. He began to stare at Lu Sheng and asked if he knew what he meant by this. Lu Sheng's expression changed upon hearing that. He started looking at Chao Qian and told him that he was eager to start. Seeing this, the referee moved away from them and asked them to stay away from him because he did not want to get hurt. Both of them distanced themselves from each other and the announcer declared the beginning of the round. Lu Sheng began to warm up and closed his eyes. With a smile, he told Chao Qian that he knew he had not accepted the previous defeat, so he decided to give him enough time to prepare. He asked Chao Qian to hurry up and use everything he had. While staring at Lu Sheng with a murderous look, he clenched his fist and told Lu Sheng that he would regret this. Upon hearing this, Chao Qian started emanating a powerful energy. Chao Qian extended his hands to the sides and his body began emitting a powerful energy as he transformed. Our boy simply started covering his face with his hand. Several seconds later, the energy emanating from Chao Qian's body reached Lu Sheng. Upon feeling the energy, his expression changed drastically. Chao Qian's body began to glow and emit a powerful evil energy that started spreading in all directions. The spectators were astonished and wondering what was happening. Chao Qian caught Lu Sheng's attention and asked him not to be surprised because there was still more to come. After saying this, he used his transformation ability and slowly his body began to transform. While he was looking at the ground, he started smiling, and gradually his skin began to change color. His chest was glowing, and his body was emitting a powerful evil energy. He stomped the ground forcefully, and slowly his body began to become more muscular, and it tore his shirt into pieces. His hair started changing to white. This ability was known as the second stage of the supreme demonic form. In a matter of seconds, the suffocating energy that Chao Qian's body was emitting reached Lu Sheng. He quickly put his arm in front of his face and wondered what was happening. Several seconds later, Chao Qian's body became huge and muscular. Now he had long white hair and 2 demonic horns and 2 sharp teeth and sharp claws. A powerful evil energy was in the center of his chest. The people who were in the stadium were terrified and amazed at the same time. While a girl was looking at Chao Qian, she started wondering what kind of technique this was. Another boy explained to the others that Chao Qian's terrifying pressure could not even be compared to a master's body. Another boy, who was also staring open-mouthed at Chao Qian, revealed to the others that this was the true power of the supreme demonic star. He also added that in the last competition, Chao Qian had swept through the first stage of transformation and had been proclaimed the best among masters. He began to wonder how terrifying it would be now that he had entered the second stage. While Zhang Yu was staring fixedly at Chao Qian with a surprised look, she became terrified. She realized how powerful he was. It felt strange to her because she did not know why she felt like this force was not emanating from Chao Qian, but rather emerging from within his own body. For her, this sensation seemed to be that of a strange beast. Xiao and the other teachers who were watching the fight were left speechless when they saw Chao Qian's body emitting this aura. Xiao had both hands resting on the balcony while observing the fight, and he was terrified. He began to wonder how this was possible and realized that Chao Qian was emitting the same aura as a master. It did not take him long to come to the conclusion that Lu Sheng was in danger. While the powerful aura of Chao Qian was impacting our boy's body, he was left speechless for a moment. He began to stare at Chao Qian and thought that this was quite interesting. He figured that Chao Qian's power was already stronger than that of an ordinary semi-master. It did not take him long to realize that his strength had increased at least 4 times. He noticed that the aura was strange and started wondering if Chao Qian had mutated. Upon realizing this, his expression changed drastically and his body began to emit a powerful energy. He started staring at Chao Qian intently. Several seconds later, Chao Qian completed the transformation. He started staring at Lu Sheng and then extended both hands. His body began to emit a powerful energy that quickly advanced toward Lu Sheng. The young man simply put his hands in his pants pockets and silently watched. While Lian Jibei was sitting on a chair, he crossed his arms and with a smile revealed that this was the power of the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy. He also added that now people would truly see what it meant to be supreme. While Chao Qing had his arms behind his back and was staring at Lu Sheng, he simply started smiling. He turned his head to the side and saw Zhang Yu, who had both hands placed on her chest and looked quite scared. Upon seeing this, he could not help but smile. He thought to himself that Lu Sheng could no longer hog all the spotlight, and she was going to be his. While Chao Qing's body emitted a powerful and suffocating aura, he stared at Lu Sheng intently and extended his hand toward him. With a smile, he asked Lu Sheng not to think about surrendering. He turned his body toward Lu Sheng and stomped on the ground forcefully and shattered it into pieces. He was preparing himself to attack. Instead of adopting a defensive stance, Lu Sheng simply put his hands in his pants pockets. Chao Qian gained momentum, and while advancing quickly toward Lu Sheng, he reached out to him. While staring at him with a murderous look in his eyes, he started smiling and asked him not to think about surrendering because, if he did, he would get very angry. As Chao Qian slowly approached Lu Sheng, he tightly clenched both fists and began rapidly striking the air, using the technique called the Supreme Demonic Fist. In a matter of seconds, his fists transformed into a powerful burst of energy that began to advance rapidly toward Lu Sheng. While Chao Qian was slowly approaching him, Lu Sheng simply started looking at the ground and remained still without making any movement at all. Seeing Chao Qian's incredible power, everyone was left speechless. Quickly, the announcer stood up from his chair and while staring at Chao Qian with a surprised look, he asked the other masters to be prepared at all times to avoid incidents. A man behind him who was wearing glasses and a black suit lowered his head and responded that he understood. Meanwhile, little by little, while Chao Qin was approaching Lu Sheng with a murderous look in his eyes, he began to stare at him intently. With an evil smile, he asked Lu Sheng not to die. He attacked Lu Sheng in the chest using his fist, and due to the force of the blow, Lu Sheng's hands came out of his pockets. The powerful energy that was in Chao Qian's strike shot upward. People were left speechless upon seeing this incredible power. His strike created a strong explosion that changed the color of the sky to red. While Lian Jibei was observing the fight, he could not help but smile at how terrifying Chao Qian's power was. He thought that now Lu Sheng was in trouble. Xiao Qing, who was standing beside him and also observing the fight, simply remained silent and started to smile. Due to Chao Qian's powerful strike, a curtain of smoke was created in the arena. Several seconds later, as the smoke began to dissipate, Lu Sheng's body could be seen surrounded by a powerful golden energy. Upon seeing this, everyone was shocked. While Lian Jibei stared at Lu Sheng with a surprised look on his face, he tightly gripped the arms of his chair. He could not believe what his eyes were witnessing. Chao Qing, who was by his side, was also surprised and began to wonder what was happening. Chao Qian attacked him again in the chest. The energy of Chao Qian and Lu Sheng started colliding into each other. Seeing this, our boy simply looked down at the ground and could not help but smile. Chao Qian's hand was not even touching Lu Sheng's body. He was actually trying to reach his body, but due to the powerful golden energy surrounding Lu Sheng's body, he was unable to. Lu Sheng raised his head slightly, and while staring into Chao Qian's eyes, he began to smile. He asked if this was how it ended. He also asked if there was not a third form of the supreme demonic technique or even more powerful combat techniques. Chao Qian raised his head slightly toward Lu Sheng, and as he looked into his eyes, he could not help but tremble in fear. He quickly moved several meters away from Lu Sheng. Upon seeing his expression, Lu Sheng realized that Chao Qian had no more techniques left. While his body was emitting a powerful and golden energy, the young man began to clean his chest with his hand. Then he started to stare at Chao Qian with a serious look. He started approaching him and tightly clenched his fist. Upon seeing this, Chao Qian stepped back several meters again. Lu Sheng gathered momentum and took a big leap. Chao Qian looked up at the sky and could not help but tremble and feel fear when he saw Lu Sheng getting closer to him. For Chao Qian, Lu Sheng became enormous in that moment. He clenched his fist tightly, and while preparing to attack, he began to stare at Chao Qian with a murderous look. He told Chao Qian that since he was called the Supreme Demonic Star of the Supreme Tao, then his fist would be called the Star Exploding Fist. Lu Sheng's fist started emitting golden energy, and as it slowly approached Chao Qian, it created great pressure. Lu Sheng forcefully struck Chao Qian and created a massive explosion in the ring. Both Lian Jibei and Chao Qian were left speechless upon seeing this. Several seconds later, once the smoke curtain created by the explosion disappeared, Chao Qian fell to his knees on the ground. Our boy approached him and put his hands in his pockets and simply stood there silently observing. Chao Qian was bleeding from all sides. From his eyes and mouth and nose, he could not withstand Lu Sheng's blow and had suffered a tremendous amount of damage in the process. Upon seeing this, Lian Jibei quickly gathered momentum and shot toward the ring. As he approached them, he began to stare aggressively at Lu Sheng and clenched his teeth tightly. He could not help but become enraged. In a matter of seconds, he reached the ring. He clenched his fist tightly, and while preparing to attack Lu Sheng, he asked how he dared to do this. Instead of trying to dodge the attack, Lu Sheng simply started looking down at the ground and remained silent without making any movement. At that moment, Xiao and the other teachers gained momentum and began advancing quickly toward Lian Jibei. Just before he could attack Lu Sheng, Xiao and the other teachers appeared. Xiao attacked Lian Jibei, but he managed to react in time and block the attack. Quickly, Xiao and Lian Jibei moved away from each other and landed in the ring near Chao Chen. Xiao took off his glasses, and while aggressively looking at Lian Jibei, he asked him what he was doing. In a matter of seconds, the other teachers also descended to the ground and began to look aggressively at Lian Jibei. The announcer stood up and reached out his hand toward Lian Jibei and gave him the order to stop. He revealed to him that everyone here was also a master. After saying this, he also asked if Lian Jibei did not mind making a fool of himself here. Lian Jibei approached Chao Chen, who was sitting on the ground. He placed a hand under his head, and while looking at the announcer, he claimed that Lu Sheng had intentionally tried to kill Chao Chen. He said, "Someone who killed the future star of the Supreme Tao Academy must die." At that moment, Chao Chen started coughing, and upon seeing this, Lian Jibei was surprised. He ordered the doctors to quickly take him to the hospital. Two nurses with a stretcher began to approach the ring. While Lu Sheng was hiding behind Xiao, he asked for his help. Xiao reached out to one side and told Lian Jibei that since Chao Chen had not died, they could let this matter go. After saying this, he asked him not to go too far. Lian Jibei turned his head toward them and with a murderous look, asked them not to forget what they had done to him. The announcer stepped into the ring and took out the microphone. He closed his eyes and extended his hand toward Lu Sheng. With a smile he announced that victory in this battle belonged to Lu Sheng from the 7th St. Martial University. While Lu Sheng had his hands in his pockets, he simply started to smile. One of the guys sitting in the stadium turned his head to his friend and told him that Lu Sheng was incredibly strong. Even in his second transformation of the supreme demonic form, Chao Qian had not been able to hurt him at all. He asked his friend if Lu Sheng was not a master himself. The other man turned his head to his friend and asked that if Lu Sheng was a master, then why was he hiding behind Vice Principal Xiao? He also added that Lu Sheng had only used his vitality to block Chao Qian's attack, so he had not reached the position of master yet. As Lu Sheng was heading toward the exit of the ring, the man told his friend that the leader of this competition was almost decided. The rest was just a formality. He also added that despite being only 19 years old, Lu Sheng was already a monster. The other man explained to him that Lu Sheng's strength was truly outstanding and that he had already surpassed an average master. He also added that not even the Supreme Demonic Star had been able to withstand one of his blows. While our boy was running his hand through his hair, with one hand he put the other in his pants pocket and started heading toward the exit of the ring. And so from this moment on, the era of the Supreme Dao's twin stars had come to an end. The Demon King Lu Sheng would rule over the National Martial Arts Championship. While Lu Sheng had his hands in his pants pockets and was heading toward the ring exit, Xiao caught his attention. Upon hearing his voice, Lu Sheng turned his head back and stopped walking. Xiao put on his glasses again and then extended his hands to the sides. He explained to Lu Sheng that injuries and killings did not count during the competition. He also added that if it had been accidental, then he would not be blamed, so he should not worry about it. He also mentioned that if someone died, then they could only blame themselves for not being strong enough. The university was going to help Lu Sheng withstand the pressure of today's fight. He told him that the Supreme Dao Martial Saint was not the only ranked 9 Martial Saint in this world. While Xiao was explaining this, the other teachers remained silent. Lu Sheng lowered his head and while looking at the ground with a lost gaze, he sighed. He replied that he would be more at ease now. As Xiao touched his glasses with his hand, he began to look toward the ground. He thought that even someone as strong as Lu Sheng would be afraid when facing a true master. There really was only one person in a million who could recognize the power of a master and still not fear it. He knew that Lu Sheng was talented, but it was still going to be difficult to ask him to be so brave. Xiao turned his head toward him and put his hand under his chin. While he was looking at Lu Sheng, he sighed and thought it was a pity. He thought that to become a martial saint, being exceptional alone was not enough. He felt this was unfortunate for Lu Sheng. While our boy had one hand in his pants pocket, he began to look down at the ground. But deep down, he could not help but feel happy because hiding behind Vice Principal Xiao's performance right now had been simply brilliant. He thought that this artistic ability deserved lasting praise. While Lu Sheng was lost in his thoughts, he began to feel a suffocating energy, so he quickly turned his head back. Behind him were the nurses who were placing the injured Chao Qian's body on the stretcher. The energy that Lu Sheng was feeling came from Lin Jibei's body. He was furious and looking down at the ground. Since he was unable to kill Lu Sheng, he thought that the end would be soon. For Lin Jibei to die at the hands of someone exceptional like Lu Sheng, he thought that Lin Jibei would probably wake up to laugh while lying in his coffin. Several hours later, all the remaining fighters climbed into the ring as the preparation for the 9th round semifinals, called the draw phase, was about to begin. In the ring were Lu Sheng and Xiao Qing and Zhang Yu and one more fighter. Spectators approached the ring and started cheering them on. Ding Rui, who was a 30-year-old from the Heaven and Earth Martial Academy, placed his hand under his chin. While looking ahead with a lost gaze, he thought that he had finally made it to the semifinals. As he continued to keep his hand under his chin, he turned his body toward the others and closed his eyes. He panicked because in reality he had gotten this far purely by luck. He would not be able to defeat any of them. He prayed to God not to let any of them harm him. Meanwhile, Lu Sheng had his hands in his pockets and simply stood still and silent. Zhang Yu clasped her hands together, and upon seeing Lu Sheng she could not help but blush. For Dingru Chao Qing was a madman, and Lu Sheng was the most terrifying and mysterious of them all. Thinking about this, he closed his eyes and could not help but tremble in fear. For him, only Zhang Yu was a normal person. He wanted to fight against her instead of fighting against Lu Sheng and Chao Qing. He clasped his palms together, and while looking at Zhang Yu, he thought that she was not only beautiful but also had a good personality. She attacked with the least violence and was very polite as well. If she hit her opponent too hard, then she would apologize afterward. She was simply an angel with the most perfect martial arts. He approached the draw box and put his hand back under his chin. He quickly turned his head to one side and put the other hand in the box. He tried to appear calm. Several seconds later, he pulled out the paper, and as he slowly turned his head to see who his rival was, he swallowed hard. Upon seeing who his rival was, he could not help but feel moved. Even though he could not defeat the monster and the madman, he still had his intelligence and luck. While Dong Ru was celebrating, Chao Qing approached the drawing box. As he reached inside with his hand, he slightly turned his head toward Dong Ru and began looking at him disdainfully. Several seconds later, Chao Qing pulled out the paper. As he held the paper in his hand and saw who his opponent was, he could not help but feel afraid. While he was lost in his thoughts, someone touched his shoulder and asked him not to worry. The person also advised him to secure a good insurance policy. Chao Qing started sweating upon hearing the voice, and while looking forward with a fearful look, he tightly held on to the paper. This person was none other than Lu Sheng. While he had his hand on Chao Qing's shoulder, the young man leaned his head toward him. With a smile, he recommended an insurance company. He also added that they were very reliable since a friend of his had just passed away, and the next day their relatives had already received the insurance payment. Chao Qing's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. He swallowed hard, and while looking down at the ground with a fearful gaze, he could not help but sweat even more. He quickly turned around and made Lu Xing stop touching his shoulder. While Lu Xing had one hand in his pants pocket and his body exuded a powerful and suffocating aura, he began to stare intently at Chao Qing. Seeing this, Chao Qing quickly took several steps back. While Lu Xing had one hand in his pants pocket, he extended the other to the side. With a smile, he asked Chao Qing not to be nervous because he was just joking. He also added that if Lu Xing were to kill him, then the Grand Master of the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy would come to kill him too. While Chao Qing was looking at Lu Xing with a fearful look and trembling, he crumpled the paper. He replied that it was fine for Lu Xing to know this. He also asked if Lu Xing considered him useless like Chao Qing. Upon hearing this, our boy could not help but smile. He responded that he did not consider Chao Qing useless like Chao Qing. After saying this, he began to approach Chao Qing, and while looking down at the ground and his body emitting a suffocating and powerful energy, he revealed that Chao Qing was even worse than Chao Qing. Lu Xing started to move away from him and waved goodbye with his hand. His words left Chao Qing shocked, and he remained paralyzed for several seconds. Several minutes later, as the crowd was cheering on the fighters, Chao Qing approached Lian Jibei, who had his arms crossed and was looking toward the ring. Chao Qing approached him, and while also looking toward the ring, he began whispering in his ear what Lu Xing had told him. Lian Jibei's expression changed drastically upon hearing this. With a furious look, he started staring at Lu Xing. He then clenched his teeth tightly and decided to make him pay sooner or later. While Lian Jibei had his arms crossed and Chao Qing was whispering in his ear, Lu Xing turned his back on them. As he walked away from them, he put his hands in his pants pockets. He slightly turned his head back with a smile. He was thinking that although it had all been pure trash talk, the effect had been good. Lian Jibei had tried to kill him but could not succeed. This meant that the fish had already taken the bait. While Lian Jibei stood with his arms crossed and his body emanating a powerful and suffocating energy, he began to stare at Lu Xing. Upon realizing this, Lu Xing stopped walking and turned his body toward Lian Jibei. While keeping his hands in his pants pockets, his body started emitting a powerful and suffocating golden energy. As the young man was staring intently at Lian Jibei, he thought that if he wanted to kill Lian Jibei, then he had to be famous and fair about it. He had to make everyone think it was the right thing to do. In that case, the next step would be tactical, but ultimately his power would not be enough to deal with the consequences as he had to follow rules established by others. While he was looking at Lian Jibei with a murderous gaze, he thought that if he were strong enough, then he could ignore all of them. Not to mention Lian Jibei, who deserved to die. So even if he killed Lian Jibei, others would not blame him. The truly strong could break the rules and create them and use them as they pleased. After all, if they wanted to save humanity from the impending disaster, it could not be done by those who followed the rules. So if he still was not strong enough yet, then he had to work harder. Several minutes later, the first match of the 9th round between Zhang Yu and Deng Ru began. The two fought for over 10 minutes before a winner was decided. While Zhang Yu had the tips of her fingers touching, she closed her eyes and her body started emitting a powerful blue energy. Deng Ru closed his eyes, and while he was wiping the sweat off his face with a cloth, he sighed. The match had finally ended, and deep down he could not help but feel happy. For him, it was a true victory to be able to maintain his strong dignity in front of these monsters. The announcer stood up, and while looking at Lu Xing, who was waiting for his turn to fight, he told the other masters that this battle had been quite balanced and calm. But he was afraid that something bad might happen again in the next one. Among the audience, there were two boys talking to each other. One of them extended his hands to the sides and told his friend that this fight had been worth watching, but it had not been very interesting. He also added that the next one was going to be the most outstanding because it was between Lu Xing and Chao Qing. He had heard that Chao Qing's back had been broken because of Lu Xing, and if the rescue had not arrived in time, he would have lost his life. He told his friend that the Supreme Dao's twin stars deserved it since every year they beat their opponents until they were pitiful and completely ruined their martial arts skills. They relied only on the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy for support. He also added that if Lu Sheng defeated Xiao Qing, then he would not be able to go to the bathroom by himself. The other boy started laughing and replied that if Lu Sheng disabled Xiao Qing, then he could simply change his name to Crippled Star. While Xiao Qing was looking down at the ground, he could not help but feel afraid. As the twin star of the Supreme Tao, he had never felt fear toward anyone who was not a master. He was the only one who instilled fear in others. He stopped walking and clenched his teeth tightly. He began to wonder when he had become so scared of facing an opponent of the same age and level as him. He could not believe that this was actually happening. While Xiao Qing was lost in his thoughts, Lu Sheng, who had his hands in his pants pockets, caught his attention. With a smile, he asked him to wake up and get ready to go into the ring to receive a beating. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, Xiao Qing snapped out of his trance. He clenched his teeth tightly, and while turning his head toward Lu Sheng, he decided not to give up. He turned his body toward Lu Sheng, and as he looked into his eyes, he extended his hand to the side. With a smile, he told Lu Sheng that it was not too late yet to go for a cold weapon. He also asked him not to tell anyone afterward that he had mistreated him during the fight. Our boy simply remained silent for several seconds without making a single move. Then, while his body was emanating a powerful and suffocating golden energy, he began to stare at Xiao Qing with a murderous look. He asked him if he really wanted to die. Feeling Lu Sheng's murderous gaze, Xiao Qing's expression changed drastically. In order not to appear scared, he started looking at Lu Sheng with a furious gaze. Then he reached out to him and asked him to stop pretending and get in the ring, since he did not believe that Lu Sheng was so strong. Several minutes later, the round between Lu Sheng and Xiao Sheng began, and both got in the ring. Lu Sheng simply put his hands in his pants pockets and remained silent while observing Xiao Sheng. Upon seeing that Lu Sheng was not moving, Xiao Sheng began to wonder what his attack would be. He decided not to dwell on the matter too much, so he assumed a defensive stance. While his body emitted a powerful purple energy, he stared intently at Lu Sheng. He thought that it did not matter what Lu Sheng's attack was, because he could always dodge it. Several minutes passed, and nothing happened. Seeing this, Xiao Qing clenched his teeth tightly and started wondering why Lu Sheng was not attacking. While Lu Sheng had his hands in his pockets, he simply stood still without making any movement. Slowly, his body began to emit a powerful blue energy. Although he was just standing there, Xiao Qing felt as if something terrifying was spreading through the air. He quickly realized that Lu Sheng had no openings at all. Seeing this, he did not know what to do. He decided to stop thinking about it and quickly assumed an offensive stance. As his body emitted a golden energy, he stared at Lu Sheng and thought that since Lu Sheng was not coming for him, he just had to attack first. He was not willing to lose, so he told Lu Sheng not to underestimate him. Xiao Qing stomped the ground with force, and gaining momentum, he used a technique called the Pulse Star Stab. In the blink of an eye, he began to advance rapidly toward Lu Sheng and left a trail of golden energy in his wake. At that moment, Xiao Qing unsheathed his dagger, and taking advantage of the momentum, he attacked Lu Sheng. He held the dagger with both hands, and the blade was enveloped in flames. As the dagger slowly approached Lu Sheng, he simply stood still. The light emitted by the dagger was so bright that all the spectators covered their eyes. Meanwhile, Xiao and the other teachers simply stood silently observing. They thought that this was a fascinating move. The announcer stood up, and upon seeing what was happening, he was shocked. Due to Xiao Qing's attack, a smoke screen was created. Once the smoke screen disappeared, Xiao Qing's silhouette attacking Lu Sheng became visible. Lu Sheng's body was surrounded by a powerful golden energy barrier. While Xiao Qing held the dagger in his hand and observed the golden energy, he began to wonder what was happening and what had happened to Lu Sheng. In a matter of seconds, his dagger started breaking into pieces. He was shocked and could not believe that his star-exploding knife had broken. In the blink of an eye, Lu Sheng appeared near him. While he had his hands in his pants pockets, he turned his head toward Xiao Qing and apologized for breaking his dagger. He also mocked him for being too slow. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, Xiao Qing quickly turned his head toward him, but at that moment, Lu Sheng disappeared again. Lu Sheng's body transformed into a blue flame as he began to surround Xiao Qing. He tried to detect Lu Sheng's presence, but was unable to do so. Seeing this, our boy started mocking him again for being too slow. Xiao Qing began rapidly turning his head from side to side and slowly started losing his composure due to Lu Sheng's constant teasing. He panicked and started wondering why he suddenly could not see Lu Sheng. He lost his composure completely and covered his ears with his hands and fell to his knees on the ground. Xiao Qing fell to his knees on the ground and his expression changed drastically. While he was looking down with a desperate look, he began to wonder what to do now. As he was lost in his thoughts, Lu Sheng approached him from behind and grabbed him by the collar of his shirt. He lifted Xiaoqing off the ground and it caused him to panic. Then our boy started looking at Xiaoqing and with a smile asked if he was trying to make him laugh. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, Xiaoqing turned his head back and became terrified. While Lu Sheng had Xiaoqing's body lifted off the ground, he began to look at him with a serious gaze. He asked if he was going to surrender so soon. Lu Sheng's words infuriated Xiaoqing. He clenched both fists tightly and activated the Supreme Whirlwind. A powerful green aura appeared around his body and started advancing in all directions. Despite Xiaoqing using the Supreme Whirlwind and his body emitting a powerful aura that was advancing in all directions, Lu Sheng held on to his shirt collar with one hand while putting the other hand into his pants pocket. He simply stood still without making any movement at all. Due to Xiaoqing using a lot of energy, he started sweating. He turned his head toward Lu Sheng and clenched his teeth tightly. With a smile, he asked Lu Sheng to taste the flavor of the Supreme Whirlwind. After saying this, he used the maximum power of the technique and a powerful green aura started advancing toward Lu Sheng. But unfortunately for him, the ability had no effect on Lu Sheng at all. The young man simply continued holding on to Xiaoqing's shirt collar, and while looking at him with a murderous gaze, he sarcastically asked if this was what he called the Supreme Whirlwind. After saying this, Lu Sheng let go of Xiaoqing's shirt collar and he fell to the ground. Several seconds later, once he landed on the ground, he deactivated the Supreme Whirlwind and the green aura slowly disappeared. He turned his body toward Lu Sheng and clenched his teeth tightly. He could not help but feel furious as the skill had not had any effect on him. Once Xiaoqing turned his body back, Lu Sheng gained momentum and disappeared again. His body transformed into blue flames once more. He decided to show Xiaoqing the true power of the wind. Upon seeing Lu Sheng disappear again, Xiaoqing could not help but panic. At that moment, he heard a noise and quickly turned his head in the direction from where it had come. He was wondering where Lu Sheng was. While Lu Sheng had his hands inside his pants pockets, he began to run quickly around Xiaoqing. Due to the high speed at which he was running, his body started projecting itself everywhere. Upon seeing this, Xiaoqing took several steps back and could not help but be shocked. He wondered what was happening. The spectators were also in shock. While everyone was watching Lu Sheng with eyes of surprise, a girl asked the others if this was an illusion. A man wearing a purple hoodie asked them how far one had to go for this to happen. In a matter of seconds, due to the high speed at which Lu Sheng was moving, hundreds of afterimages of him appeared around Xiaoqing. He mocked Xiaoqing and asked him to try and find him. Upon hearing this, Xiaoqing began turning his head in all directions and wondered what was happening and where the real Lu Sheng was. While the afterimages of Lu Sheng were everywhere, he appeared behind Xiaoqing and with a smile asked him to try and touch him. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, Xiaoqing quickly turned his head back, but at that moment, Lu Sheng disappeared again. In the blink of an eye, he appeared beside him. While Lu Sheng's body was surrounded by a blue aura, he stared at Xiaoqing and with a smile explained that if Xiaoqing managed to touch him, then he would win. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, Xiaoqing realized that he was right next to him. He could not help but start sweating and panicking. Xiao approached the railing and placed both hands on top. Upon seeing Lu Sheng, he was stunned. He began to stare fixedly at Lu Sheng and realized that the essence of the afterimages was actually visual retention. When visual memory had not yet faded away, by perceiving again the signal sent by the eyes, the afterimage occurred. Being able to create 5 or 6 afterimages was already quite impressive, but what Lu Sheng was doing was indescribably terrifying. While Xiaoqing's body was emitting a blue aura, he unsheathed his dagger. He clenched his teeth tightly and began swinging it in all directions, attacking the afterimages. He told himself that all the afterimages were false and knew that only one of them was real. He was confident that he would be able to find it. He continued attacking the afterimages for several seconds. As his body emitted a powerful aura, he clenched his teeth tightly and attacked another afterimage with the dagger and cut it in half. He thought he had succeeded, but at that moment, Lu Sheng caught his attention again. Upon hearing his voice, Xiaoqing turned his head to one side and started wondering which of these afterimages was real. While Xiaoqing was distracted trying to find the real Lu Sheng, our boy appeared behind him in the blink of an eye. As he reached his hands toward Xiaoqing's head, he asked him to witness the true power of the wind. He used a technique called the Divine Wind of New Moon. Just before Xiaoqing could make a move, Lu Sheng attacked him in the blink of an eye. He broke his neck and both arms and both legs. As Xiaoqing's body slowly fell to the ground, Lu Sheng appeared behind him. He put one hand inside his pants pocket and turned his head to one side. With a murderous look on his face, he simply stood still. In a matter of seconds, Xiaoqing's body fell backward to the ground. Lu Sheng had bent his arms and legs and broken his jaw. He turned his back on Xiaoqing, and as he was walking away, he slightly turned his head back. With a smile, he told him that now that he had broken limbs and 8 broken ribs, he was on par with his teammate from before. While Chaoqing's body was trembling and he was bleeding from the mouth with his last bit of strength, he turned his head toward Lu Sheng and started screaming in pain. The referee approached Chaoqing's body and extended one hand toward his body and the other toward the sky. While looking at Lu Sheng, he declared him the winner of the round. Lu Sheng simply started walking toward the exit of the ring and could not help but smile. He had both hands in his pants pockets. As he was heading toward the exit, 2 boys sitting in the stadium began to talk to each other. The boy with blue hair told his friend that Lu Sheng was too powerful. The boy with brown hair started looking at Lu Sheng and asked his friend who on the same level as him would be able to face him. After saying this, he turned his head to the side and saw Zheng Yu, who had both fists resting on her knees. Seeing Lu Sheng's incredible and monstrous power, she was terrified. Now it was Zhang Yu's turn. Seeing that she was quite nervous and afraid, the brown-haired boy began to wonder if she would be able to confront the Demon King Lu Sheng. The announcer stepped into the ring and closed his eyes. He held the microphone with one hand and extended the other toward Zhang Yu. He announced that the next fight would be between Lu Sheng and Zhang Yu. He asked her to step into the ring. Just before he could finish speaking, she raised her hand and decided to forfeit. Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked and began to wonder what she was doing. While she had one hand raised toward the sky with the other, she started pointing at herself. While looking at the announcer with a nervous expression, she explained that she was giving up because she did not want to continue. She decided not to give any further explanations. Upon hearing this, the announcer became somewhat confused. While holding the microphone with one hand, he started touching his head with the other. While the young man had his hands on his hips, he turned his body toward her, and while he was watching her, he remained silent. Upon seeing that Lu Sheng was looking at her, she panicked and without thinking twice, started running away. While Lu Sheng was watching as she was getting further away, he became somewhat confused. He started wondering what was wrong with this girl. What nobody knew was that she was capable of seeing the evil and suffocating aura emanating from Lu Sheng's body. To her, his gaze was a murderous look similar to Lian Jibei's. While she was running away from Lu Sheng, she thought he was like a source of darkness, a monster lurking in the shadows. If she confronted him, she would end up going crazy. At the same time, the vice principal was looking at Lu Sheng and started smiling. He told the director that the ending of this martial arts tournament had become a bit chaotic. As the director looked at the ring, he began to smile and replied with a yes. While Lu Sheng had both hands in his pants pockets, his body began to emit a powerful golden aura. The vice principal started looking at Lu Sheng with a joyful gaze and explained to the director that there was nothing else that could be done since no one could defeat him. He thought that in the end, the 7th Saint would win the championship. He also thought that at least their martial arts university could proudly hold its head high. Half an hour later, the announcer closed his eyes and started coughing to get everyone's attention. Meanwhile, our boy had both hands in his pockets and was heading toward the exit of the ring. The announcer got off the ring and grabbed the microphone. He closed his eyes and raised his hand to the sky and informed everyone that the National Martial Arts Competition for university students had come to an end. He also added that each participant had shown exceptional spirit and a unique style. The competition was being broadcast live. He closed his eyes and raised his hand to the sky and informed everyone that the National Martial Arts Competition for university students had come to an end. He also added that each participant had shown exceptional spirit and a unique style. The competition was being broadcast live. At the same time, in a room, a girl with pink hair reached out toward the television and turned her head back. She clenched her other fist and with a smile told Yang Yuan that her boyfriend was really handsome. She also added that he had come in first place in the martial arts tournament. Upon hearing this, Yang Yuan could not help but blush. While she was fixing her hair, she turned to her friend and told her that Lu Sheng was not her boyfriend. She reminded her that she had said they were just friends. Upon hearing this, the girl fell silent and then turned her head toward the television. Upon seeing Lu Sheng, Yang Yuan closed her eyes and put her hand near her mouth, and while blushing, she started to smile. At the same time, in Lu Sheng's house, his sister began to celebrate because he had come in first place. She was watching Lu Sheng's fight with their parents. She started jumping for joy and thought that her brother was the best. Lu Sheng's mother asked his father to book a restaurant to celebrate his victory with family and friends. His father took out his phone and with a smile started to book a restaurant. He thought it was a good idea, but his sister interrupted them. She turned her body toward them, and while pointing at the TV with her finger, she asked them to wait because the awards had not been given yet. She also added that this was going to be Lu Sheng's most outstanding moment. At the same time, in a room where two girls were sitting watching the tournament, the girl with green hair turned her head toward Dandan and told her that Lu Sheng had reached a very high level. Upon hearing this, Dandan could not help but blush. She turned her head toward the girl with green hair and smiled. She replied that it was fine this way. This allowed her to see Lu Sheng frequently and send him messages even though she knew he would never read or respond to them. In the Eastern Military District, a boy with green hair who was also watching the tournament stood up. He clenched his fists and thought that Lu Sheng was incredible. He threw himself onto the chair and closed his eyes and smiled. He thought that the second master must be very happy. He also believed that the batch of mutated marrow-changing liquid they gave him had been worth it. A girl with white hair who was close to him told him that it was not necessarily the case. He turned his head toward her and with a surprised look asked her what she meant by this. He explained to her that after graduating from university, Lu Sheng was supposed to come directly to their Eastern Military District. He also added that it had happened a long time ago, and Lu Sheng was not the type of person who forgot debts of gratitude. While the girl with white hair was sitting in the chair, she placed one knee over the other and crossed her arms. She replied to the boy with green hair that Lu Sheng certainly would not break his promise, but she asked him what would happen if he could not come. After saying this, she asked the boy not to forget who was behind the seven saints. The martial saint had been interested in Lu Sheng for a long time. After this tournament, it was likely that they would officially announce that Lu Sheng was going to join them under the guidance of the martial saint. No matter how great their second master was, she asked the boy if he would be able to surpass the martial saint. Upon hearing this, the green-haired boy panicked. He put both hands on his head, and while looking up at the ceiling, he explained to her that he had thought they could soon go together to the battlefield with Lu Sheng. While the white-haired girl sat with her arms crossed, she began to look up at the ceiling. She replied to him that the day would come. She also asked him to prepare well since a new discovery had been made. They would soon have to go on a mission. Upon hearing this, the green-haired boy turned his body toward her and was shocked. He thought it was annoying because they had barely rested for a few days, and now they had to go on another mission again. While the girl was lost in her thoughts, the boy caught her attention and told her that Lu Sheng was on TV. Upon hearing his voice, she snapped out of her trance and turned her head toward the television. Our boy was pointing at the camera, and he revealed to everyone that he wanted to challenge Grandmaster Lian Jibei. Seeing this, the green-haired boy and the white-haired girl approached the television and started wondering what was happening with Lu Sheng. A few minutes earlier, the announcer stepped into the ring, and while holding the microphone, he started looking at Lu Sheng. On behalf of the National Martial Arts Association, he announced that Lu Sheng was the champion of this national martial arts competition for university students. Just as he was about to make the announcement official, someone interrupted him and asked him to wait a moment. He was shocked upon hearing this and began wondering what was happening. The person who had interrupted was none other than Lu Sheng. He approached the announcer and placed his hand on his chest. He slightly bowed his head and addressed him as president. He explained that he had a request to make and added that he hoped it would be accepted. The announcer turned his head toward Lu Sheng and reached out his hand toward him. While looking into his eyes, he decided to listen to his request. Upon hearing this, our boy slowly began to lift his head, and while he was looking down, he started to smile. He raised his head and turned his body back toward the audience. He revealed to everyone that he had participated in this tournament with the intention of appreciating the skills of the great masters to perfect his path in martial arts. The announcer was somewhat surprised upon hearing this. All the people in the stadium began to talk among themselves. Several seconds later, Lu Sheng turned his head to the side. While he had one hand in his pants pocket, he started pointing with his finger toward the side. He told them that he was very disappointed with all of them. The announcer began to stare at him intently and was somewhat surprised. He did not know what Lu Sheng was doing. Lu Sheng revealed to everyone that none of them had made him feel pressured during this tournament. For him, this tournament was boring and monotonous. All the people in the stadium were left speechless upon hearing that. The woman who was with Xiao approached him and asked him what was happening and what Lu Sheng was doing. She said that if he continued like this, he would end up becoming the target of all martial arts schools in the country. While Xiao was looking at Lu Sheng, he started touching his glasses with his finger. He replied to her that he did not know what Lu Sheng was doing. He knew him perfectly well and knew that he was not the type of person who despised others or became arrogant. While Xiao and the others were talking, Lu Sheng began to point his finger to one side. He pointed his finger directly toward Lian Jibei, who was sitting on his couch and calmly watching the fights. Lu Sheng told everyone that he was very disappointed with the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy. He revealed that the twin stars who were promising and known as the stars of the Supreme Tao were actually trash who had not learned even a bit of the Supreme Tao's legacy. Lian Jibei could not help but become enraged upon hearing this. As he sat on the sofa, he tightly clenched his fist and struck the armrest. He stared intently at Lu Sheng and asked him what he meant by all of this. The young man turned his body toward Lian Jibei and explained to him that he had no hidden intention. At first he only wanted to fight against the twin stars of the Supreme Tao to strengthen his martial will and surpass the master rank. But now that he had fought against them, he told Lian Jibei that they were very weak. After saying this, Lu Sheng's body began to emit a powerful blue aura. With a murderous look, he started looking at Lian Jibei and told everyone that he wanted to challenge the Supreme Master of the Supreme Tao, Lian Jibei, right now. Lian Jibei began to stare into Lu Sheng's eyes with a murderous look upon hearing this. Lu Sheng did not back down and returned the gaze. It created immense pressure in the atmosphere. Both the spectators in the stadium and those watching the fights from home were shocked. They could not believe that Lu Sheng wanted to challenge a master from the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy. They thought he had lost his mind. At the Eastern Military District, Dongqing Xiu placed her hand near her face. While looking at Lu Sheng through the television, she began to wonder if he really wanted to challenge Master Lian Jibei. The boy with green hair turned away from the television and was impressed. He thought that Lu Sheng was incredible. Seeing him challenging a master, he thought that Lu Sheng was a brave and bold person. Dongqing Xiu crossed her arms and simply stood silently observing. She could guess what Lu Sheng was thinking. She explained to the boy that what Lu Sheng wanted was to use Lian Jibei to break through the final obstacle and create a great impression in the battle against a 7th-level master. The boy turned his head back upon hearing her voice and was surprised. At the same time in the stadium, Lian Jibei gained momentum and with a big leap started moving toward Lu Sheng. He was ready to fulfill his wish. While Lian Jibei was getting closer, Lu Sheng simply stayed there eagerly waiting for him. Seeing this, she started to smile and explained to the boy that Lu Sheng at that moment was going to be unique in the entire history of the Dragon Kingdom. Several seconds later, Lian Jibei landed in the ring near Lu Sheng. He warned him in advance not to let himself be killed by him. Our boy simply put his hands in his pockets and remained silent. He thought that he was going to be the first young master who had risen before the age of 20. With a smile, he asked Lian Jibei not to worry since, in the stage of life and death, masters could also remain calm. At the same time, the girl who was accompanying Cao crossed her arms and explained to the others that Lu Sheng did not necessarily have to challenge Lian Jibei. She did not know why he would not use his strength as a master to surpass any of the other teachers as his training partner instead. While Cao had one hand on the railing, he turned his body toward them. He explained that Lian Jibei was at the pinnacle of the master rank. In addition, Lu Sheng had a feud with the twin stars, so Lian Jibei would attack him mercilessly. Therefore, it was logical for Lu Sheng to seek to fight against him in order to become stronger. After saying this, Xiao turned his head toward the ring, and while looking at Lu Sheng, he started sweating. For him, this was very strange, since Lu Sheng had never wanted to break the power of a grandmaster in such a simple way. While Lu Sheng had his hands in his pants pockets, he turned his head toward the announcer. The announcer started stroking his beard and closed his eyes. He could not help but praise Lu Sheng for becoming so strong at such a young age, given that his temperament and courage were exceptional. He decided to accept the request. He put his hands behind his back and turned his head toward one of the Grand Masters standing beside him. He gave the order to stay alert throughout the fight and not let Lu Sheng get seriously injured. The Grand Master closed his eyes and with a smile asked the announcer not to worry because the 7 Great Masters took good care of Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng dropped his arms and simply waited for Lian Jibei to start the fight. Lian Jibei began to stare at Lu Sheng with an aggressive look. He thought that despite being strong, Lu Sheng was still a 6th-level fighter. He had been a master for over 20 years, so he did not know how someone so arrogant dared to challenge a master like him. He decided to use his power as well and kill Lu Sheng with a single blow. The announcer stepped into the ring alongside the 2 Grand Masters. While he was stroking his beard with one hand, he extended the other to the side. Since both parties had agreed, he announced the beginning of the fight. He asked both Lu Sheng and Lian Jibei to consider the limits and stop in time. Several seconds later, the battle began. Lu Sheng activated his power, and a powerful blue aura started appearing around his body. He could not help but smile and feel happy because finally the moment he had been waiting for so long had arrived. He decided to unleash the power that he had been suppressing for a long time. He did not care about becoming a grandmaster through the help of others or how he was going to become stronger under the pressure of death. All he wanted was to decide life and death between them. Lian Jibei extended his hands to the sides, and his body gradually emitted a suffocating energy. He began to stare at Lu Sheng and asked if he was ready to feel the pressure of a master. He extended his hands to the sides and used his transformation ability. Slowly, his body began to transform and change color to green. Scales started to appear on his skin. While Lian Jibei was transforming, the young man dragged his foot to one side and assumed an offensive stance. He did not care about any of that. All he wanted was to decide life and death between them. Gaining momentum, Lu Sheng began to advance quickly toward Lian Jibei. Just before he could finish the transformation, Lu Sheng appeared in front of him and started looking at him with a murderous gaze. Lian Jibei was shocked when he saw that Lu Sheng had approached in the blink of an eye. Lu Sheng approached him, and while staring into his eyes, he told him that he had a fist prepared for him. He said he wanted to invite Grandmaster Lian Jibei to death. Upon hearing this, Lian Jibei's expression changed drastically. He was terrified and began to wonder what was happening. While Lu Sheng's eye was on fire, he combined everything together. He used the stellar impact to increase his life force. After increasing his life force, he used the divine wind of the sun remnant, and a fireball appeared in the palm of his hand. Then he clenched his fist tightly and used the stellar emission ability to make the fireball transform into blue flames. Lu Sheng gathered momentum and took a big leap. While his eyes were shining and his body was surrounded by suffocating energy, he began to bring his fists closer to Lian Jibei. Lian Jibei's expression changed drastically upon seeing this. Lu Sheng's fist transformed into what looked like the sun. The energy emanating from his fist began to spread in all directions. The announcer quickly covered his face with his hand and thought that this was not good. He took a big leap and started moving toward the ring with the intention of stopping Lu Sheng. The masters who were by his side tried to stop it, but it was in vain. Our boy attacked Lian Jibei and created a huge explosion in the process. It was so powerful that it even destroyed part of the ring floor into pieces. Several seconds later, once the smoke curtain created by the explosion began to dissipate, Lian Jibei's feet could be seen. Lu Sheng's attack had been so powerful that the only thing left of Lian Jibei was his feet. While Lu Sheng had his fist extended toward where Lian Jibei had been, and his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, the announcer landed in the ring near him. He asked Lu Sheng what he had done. Lu Sheng remained silent for several seconds. Then he turned his head toward the announcer. While his body exuded a suffocating energy, he began to smile and asked the Grand Master if he also wanted to fight him. The Grand Master was terrified upon seeing this. As he looked at Lu Sheng, he thought that this kid had just killed a 7th-level master and now wanted to challenge him, who was an 8th-level grandmaster. While Xiao was looking at Lu Sheng, he thought that Lian Jibei had died without even leaving a body behind. At that moment, he realized that Lu Sheng did not even want to use the pressure of a master to break through. All he wanted from the very beginning was to challenge Lian Jibei himself. Upon seeing that Lu Sheng had defeated Lian Jibei, the spectators were shocked and began to wonder if he was truly at the 6th level. Xiao forcefully struck the railing with the palm of his hand and finally realized what was happening. He began to touch his glasses with his finger, and while staring intently at Lu Sheng, he understood. The only thing Lu Sheng wanted from the beginning was to confront the masters themselves, not to use them as stepping stones, but to fight them directly. Lu Sheng turned his head toward Xiao and realized that he had finally understood. While his body was emitting a powerful energy, he started staring at Xiao. He told him that this was simply him following his heart. Lu Sheng's attack had been so powerful that the only thing left of Lian Jibei were his feet. While Lu Sheng still had both fists clenched and was looking at Lian Jibei's feet, the announcer descended into the ring. Upon seeing that Lian Jibei had been killed, he was in shock. He began to look at Lu Sheng with a fearful gaze and started wondering if he had planned all of this from the beginning. He was terrified yet amazed. He was unable to believe that 19-year-old Lu Sheng had defeated a level 7 master with just one move. For the announcer, Lu Sheng was truly incredible. While Lu Sheng's body was emanating a powerful energy and his fist was extended toward what remained of Lian Jibei, he simply stayed silent for several seconds without making any movement. He was enjoying the moment. The announcer approached Lu Sheng and put his hands behind his back. He slightly turned his head toward him and told him that he was going to report this matter to the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy as well as to the Martial Saint. Upon hearing the voice, Lu Sheng snapped out of his trance. While still clenching both fists, he began turning his body toward the announcer and became somewhat confused. The announcer immediately turned his back on him and closed his eyes. While he was moving away from Lu Sheng, he told him that he could do as he pleased. Our boy slightly turned his head toward the announcer, and while watching how slowly he was moving away, he began to smile. He thought that the announcer had no intention of fighting against him at all. Lu Sheng had thought that he might be able to find out how big the gap was between the announcer and the Grandmasters of level 8. For Lu Sheng, this was truly a pity. While Lu Sheng was lost in his thoughts, someone came down to the ring and grabbed his arm. This person was none other than Xiao. He turned his head toward Lu Sheng with a worried look and asked him to follow him and come down from the mountain. Upon hearing Xiao's voice, he snapped out of his trance and turned his head toward him. While looking into his eyes, he simply remained silent. Xiao grabbed Lu Sheng's arm and they both started running to exit the stadium. Along the way, Xiao told him that he was going to take him back to the Seven Saints. He asked him to go see the Martial Saint since this time he had messed up too much. Lu Sheng simply stayed silent and listened without interrupting. Xiao turned his head toward him, and while looking into his eyes he revealed that Lian Jibei was not an ordinary master. Just before Xiao could finish speaking, Lu Sheng interrupted him. With a calm look he began to gaze at Xiao and told him that he already knew. He said Lian Jibei was Lian Su's brother. Lian Su was the wife of the martial saint. Several seconds later they left the stadium. While Xiao was holding Lu Sheng's arm, he started staring into his eyes. He asked him how he dared to do this, and also reminded him that in this world apart from the martial saint, no one could protect him now. The young man simply remained calm and put his hand in his pants pocket. He stayed silent for several seconds. He made Xiao let go of his hand and turned his head to the side. He closed his eyes and thanked Vice Principal Xiao for caring about him. He added that he did not need the martial saint's protection. Xiao was shocked upon hearing this. He extended his hands to the sides and asked if Lu Sheng was crazy. He also asked if he did not care about what could happen to his family and friends. Xiao lost composure at Lu Sheng's behavior. He started staring into his eyes and, with a shout, reminded him that he was still young. He advised him not to act impulsively in certain situations to avoid regrets in the future. After saying this, Xiao turned his back on him and slightly turned his head toward Lu Sheng as he slowly walked away. He advised him to hurry up because otherwise, once the Lian family found out, it would be too late. Lu Sheng simply put his hands in his pants pockets, and while watching Xiao walk away he started to smile. He replied with a yes. Xiao stopped walking upon hearing this and turned his body toward him. He became somewhat confused. Lu Sheng slightly turned his head toward him and explained that once the Lian family found out, it would indeed be too late. That was precisely why he refused to go with Xiao. Xiao was shocked. He began to stare at Lu Sheng and asked what he planned to do. Several minutes passed and Lu Sheng explained to him what he was going to do. Xiao calmed down after hearing the plan. He put his hands on his hips and inside he had understood what Lu Sheng was planning. He decided to wait for him in the capital and also asked if he wanted him to accompany him. While our boy had both hands in his pockets and his body was emitting a powerful energy, he started walking. He passed by Xiao and while looking at the ground he began to smile. He replied that it was not necessary. Several seconds later, Lu Sheng reached the stairs leading down from the mountain. While the wind was blowing, he began to look at the stairs and started to smile. Gaining momentum, he started descending from the mountain through the stairs at high speed. He asked Xiao to try to keep up with him. In the blink of an eye, Lu Sheng distanced himself several meters from Xiao. Seeing this, Xiao was left speechless. While watching as Lu Sheng gradually moved away at high speed, he began to wonder what level he had actually reached. At the same time, Lu Sheng's sister and their parents went to the train station. While their father had one hand on his hip and was looking at his watch, their mother approached him and asked how much longer it would be. He replied that there was still half an hour left, and this was the closest and fastest high-speed train. While they were talking, his sister placed her hands on her chest and started wondering what had happened. The live broadcast had ended just when Lu Sheng was about to challenge Master Lian Jibei. Lu Sheng's mother approached his father and took him by the arm. While tears were falling from her eyes, she asked if there was any faster train than this. She asked him what would happen if something happened to their beloved son. She did not know what she would do without him. Thinking this, she turned her back to him and put both hands on her face and started crying. Seeing this, Lu Sheng's father placed his hands on her shoulders. He slightly turned his head toward his daughter and asked her to help calm her mother down since Lu Sheng would be fine. She snapped out of her thoughts upon hearing this and was somewhat surprised. As she approached them, she began pointing at herself and asked if he was talking to her. She turned her head to the side and with a worried look she began to wonder how she was going to persuade her mother. Lu Sheng really had tried to kill Lian Jibei, who was a level 7 Grandmaster. She remembered that Lieutenant Governor Xiao Pingnan, who had previously visited their house, was also a Grandmaster. She was truly scared because she did not know what would happen next and did not know how to calm her mother down. She approached her mother and turned her head toward her. With a sincere look, she asked her not to worry about Lu Sheng. She said nothing would happen to him. While her mother was wiping away her tears with her hand, she turned her head toward her daughter. Upon hearing her words, she calmed down a bit. At that moment, her phone started ringing because she had a call. Without wasting a second, she answered it. The person who had called was none other than Lu Sheng. With a frightened look on her face, she asked him what he had just done. Lu Sheng explained to her what had happened and what she needed to do. She became happy upon hearing this and lifted her head toward the ceiling. She asked him not to worry because she had understood everything. Upon seeing that the call was from Lu Sheng, their parents were surprised. While their father had both hands on her shoulders and was comforting their mother, she placed her hands on her chest. She approached her daughter and asked if Lu Sheng was okay. While the sister was on the call holding the phone with one hand, she began pointing at the phone with the other. She turned her head toward her mother and with a smile asked her not to worry. She explained that the reason why the live TV broadcast had been interrupted was because of poor signal in the mountains. Upon hearing this, their mother stopped crying and felt relieved. She thought that nothing bad had happened to her beloved son. The sister handed her the phone so she could talk to Lu Sheng. With a worried look, she asked him who was scaring people in such a way. She also asked if he knew how much she and his father were worried about him. Lu Sheng told her that he was getting ready to go on stage to receive an award. She felt relieved upon hearing this and asked him not to worry because they would not bother him anymore. She also asked him to come back home in a few days so that she could see him with her own eyes. After this, Lu Sheng hung up the call. While she was holding the phone with one hand, she began pointing at it with her finger. She turned her head toward Lu Sheng's father and with a worried look told him that something had happened to Lu Sheng. He turned his head toward her and asked her not to worry as Lu Sheng would be fine. While they were talking, the sister simply remained silent and started smiling. She put her finger under her lip and slightly raised her head. While looking at the ceiling, she began to think about what Lu Sheng had told her. She thought this was really strange since in previous tournaments she had never heard of any trophy delivery program after the match. She decided to stop thinking about it and trust Lu Sheng. Their father put his hand on his wife's waist and extended the other hand to the side. With a smile, he told her that they could go grab something to eat and relax since there was no need to worry about so many things. While they were happily talking, a mysterious man began to silently observe them. This man was hidden behind a corner, wearing a cap and an earpiece. As he stared intently at the family, he informed his superiors that they had already returned and that they were still being watched. His superiors thanked him. While the man touched the earpiece in his ear, he looked down at the ground. He replied that there was no need to worry. Now that he had received the assignment, he would take care of resolving the matter. He also had orders from Master Yu. Several seconds later, the man took out his mobile phone. The news of Lian Jibei's death had spread quickly, and the man's superiors knew that Lu Sheng was the killer. Upon seeing the news, the man was terrified. While sweating profusely, he thought that Lu Sheng was incredible. At just 19 years old, he was capable of killing a master. At the same time as Lu Sheng looked at his phone, he thought that with Vice Principal Xiao and Master Yu's help, the safety of his parents and sister would no longer be a problem. Several minutes later, Lu Sheng went to a store. While he had both hands in his pants pockets, he began to approach the entrance. He remembered Xiao's words. Xiao had asked him if he did not know who Lian Su was. She was Lian Jibei's sister. He also asked if Lu Sheng was not afraid of the retaliation that the Lian family could take. Several seconds later, our boy entered the store, and as he walked down the aisle, he thought about Xiao's question. He admitted to himself that yes, he was very afraid. He was even more afraid of losing everything he had now. But there were things one could not stop doing just because they were scared of them. While his body was emanating a powerful and suffocating energy, he began to stare ahead with a murderous look. He feared spending the second half of his life living under their gaze. Several minutes later, Lu Sheng arrived at the door of the VIP room in Grand Tansheng's entertainment club. He approached the door and stood still for several seconds. Then he activated his perception ability and saw that there were two people inside. One was sitting and one was standing. The boy who was sitting with both hands on his head was Lian Jibei's son, Lian Ye. He told the other man that his father had died. The man approached him and with a surprised look asked who had killed his father. He said he had asked his father not to do anything reckless and to come back as soon as possible. While Lian Ye had his hand on his head and was crying, he clenched his teeth tightly. He asked the man what they were waiting for to kill the person who had killed his father. He stood up and grabbed the doorknob and opened it. At that moment, he saw Lu Sheng standing in front of the entrance. He became confused and asked him who he was. While Lu Sheng's eyes were emitting a powerful energy, he stared into his eyes with a murderous look. He smiled and told him that his father was looking for him. He also said he had been asked to take Lian Ye to meet his father. At the same time, on the outskirts of the city, in the Lian family's villa, there was a woman named Lian Su. She was Lian Jibei's sister, and she was wearing a red dress and sitting on a chair with crossed legs while holding a wine glass in her hand. Lian Su began to move the wine glass, and while looking down at the floor, she asked the man next to her if Lian Jibei had really died. The green-haired man was kneeling before her, and he slightly lifted his head toward her. He explained that Master Lian Jibei had gone with the students from the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy to participate in the Grand University Martial Arts Tournament. But once the tournament ended, he was challenged by Lu Sheng, who was one of the 7 saints and was killed on the spot without leaving any trace behind. Lian Su simply turned her head toward the man and, while looking down at the ground, she remained silent and listened. She was holding the wine glass in one hand and placed the other on the table and stood up. She told him that this was impossible. Her brother was intelligent and he intimidated the weak and feared the strong. She did not understand how it was possible for him to have accepted another great master's challenge. The man lifted his head toward her, and upon seeing her expression, he became nervous. While he was prostrated before her, he revealed that the killer of her brother named Lu Sheng was a level 6 warrior. Lian Su could not believe what her ears were hearing. She unconsciously gripped the wineglass tightly, and it slowly started to crack. She became furious upon hearing that her brother's killer Lu Sheng was simply a level 6 warrior. Her body emitted a powerful energy, and she turned her head toward him with a murderous look and asked if this was some kind of joke. The man with green hair prostrated himself before her, and while looking down at the ground, he asked her to calm down and listen to him until the end. Lian Su had no other choice but to listen to what he had to say. Then the man revealed that during the battle, Lu Sheng suddenly rose from level 6 and became a grandmaster. That was the reason he was able to completely annihilate Lian Jibei, who was a level 7 master. Lian Su lost her composure after hearing that. She turned her back to the man, and as she was walking away from him, she threw the wineglass to the side. She put her hand on her face and started laughing out loud. She could not believe that a level 6 warrior killed her brother. The man began to stand up, and upon seeing her behavior, he became somewhat confused and surprised at the same time. Lian Su stopped walking and put both hands on her face. She asked the man how it was possible that her brother had been killed by a mere level 6 warrior. Within seconds, she regained her composure, and now instead of laughing out loud, she began to cry for her brother's death. She put both hands on her face, and tears were falling from her eyes. She started wondering how it was possible that a martial arts genius like Lian Jibei had lost his life. Then she removed her hands from her face, and while looking at the landscape, she thought that now that things had reached this point, it was time to take action. She asked the man if he could go on a trip for her. The man who was prostrated before her lifted his head and was somewhat surprised. Lian Su's body was emitting a suffocating energy, and tears were still falling from her eyes. She ordered the man to kill Lu Sheng. The green-haired man felt her suffocating energy and prostrated himself before her again. He explained that killing Lu Sheng was not appropriate. He said this because Grandmaster Lian Jibei had been killed during an official combat, and according to the rules of martial arts, one could not blame their opponent if something tragic happened during the fight. Lian Su became furious with helplessness after hearing that. She approached the man and grabbed him by the neck, and while looking into his eyes, she asked if her brother had died in vain. At that moment, her phone started vibrating. She immediately picked up the phone, and upon reading the message, she fell to her knees on the ground. She lost her composure once again and closed her eyes and began laughing out loud. She could not believe that everyone was dead. She grabbed the phone with both hands, and while her body was emitting a powerful energy, she looked at the man with helplessness and asked if he was going to help her. The man simply remained silent, and upon seeing this, she decided to take action on her own. At the same time in the city at one of the schools, the children who were very happy began to go back home with their parents. Not far from the children, there was a man wearing a cap standing next to a trash bin. Upon hearing the laughter of the children, the man turned his head toward them. This man was none other than Fu Jianming, and he could not help but cry and feel sad. He was looking at a girl with pink hair who had her eyes closed and was happily playing with her friends. This girl reminded Fu Jianming of his late daughter. The girl felt his gaze and turned her head toward him and was somewhat surprised. She and her friend quickly started running because Fu Jianming was known as the crazy old man, and the children were fleeing from him to avoid being caught. Poor Fu Jianming decided to ignore the children and went back to his work searching for some things in the trash bin. Several seconds later, one of the boys who was with the girl bumped into someone. Upon seeing who this person was, both girls were left speechless. This person was none other than Lu Sheng. Our boy closed his eyes and gave a pleasant smile to the children. While Fu Jianming was picking up plastic bottles from the trash bin, someone called him by his name. The boy who collided with him became somewhat confused upon seeing his smile. It was Lu Sheng. He started approaching old Fu Jianming and with a smile told him that he was here. Upon hearing Lu Sheng's voice, Fu Jianming's expression changed drastically. He was in shock. Lu Sheng threw a bag on the ground next to his foot. He had brought what Fu Jianming wanted, so he asked him to take a look and see if it was correct. Fu Jianming was in shock and dropped the bag of bottles and cans on the floor. He turned his head toward the bag and started wondering if Lu Sheng had really succeeded. Without wasting a single second, he sat on the ground and prepared to open the bag. Fu Jianming approached the bag and put his hand on the zipper and slowly began to open it. Upon fully opening the bag and seeing its contents, he was in shock. Inside there was the head of Lian Jibei's son, who was the kidnapper and murderer of his daughter. Lu Sheng explained to him that because he had no other choice, he could only bring the head of this person. After saying this, Lu Sheng pulled out a photograph of Fu Jianming in which he was with his deceased wife and their 2 late daughters. He handed him the photo and put his hand in his pocket, and while looking into his eyes, he started to smile. He asked him to keep it safe. Fu Jianming was sitting on the ground with both knees, and he stopped looking at what was inside the bag. He lifted his head slightly toward Lu Sheng, and upon seeing the photograph he became paralyzed. He took the photo with both hands, and upon seeing his two daughters and his beloved wife, he could not help but cry. He placed the photo on his chest and lowered his head, and clenched his teeth tightly and started crying even more. Now that our boy had finished his task, he began to walk away. Upon seeing this, Fu Jianming prostrated himself before Lu Sheng, and with tears flowing endlessly from his eyes, he thanked him over and over. Lu Sheng turned his back on him, and as he walked away, he waved goodbye with one hand and put the other in his pants pocket. He told him there was no need to thank him. Several hours later, it began to get dark and all the city lights turned on. Lu Sheng climbed onto the roof of a building, and while he was watching the sun setting, he made a call to Vice Principal Xiao. He explained that he had already finished everything he had to do. Xiao asked him to return quickly. He said he had already informed the martial saint, who was willing to officially accept Lu Sheng as his disciple and commit to protecting him from all dangers coming from the Supreme Dao Martial Academy. Then he replied that he was not going to come back. Xiao was on the other end of the call and became confused. He asked what Lu Sheng meant by this. The young man told him that he remembered Xiao's office had a huge window from floor to ceiling. Xiao was indeed sitting in his office. Lu Sheng asked him to turn his head back and look through the window. Xiao obeyed and turned his head back and saw the tall tower. Lu Sheng, who was also staring at the tower, asked him if he knew what he had to do to become a martial saint. He revealed that in the future he would become the supreme warrior and destroy the tall tower so that everyone could see his true power. After saying this, Lu Sheng hung up the call. Xiao tried to explain to the martial saint what Lu Sheng was planning to do, but the martial saint interrupted him. He told Xiao that if Lu Sheng did not want to be his disciple, then it was better to forget about it. Xiao began to stand up while the martial saint was stroking his beard with one hand. He put the other behind his back and started approaching Xiao. He asked him not to have any regrets toward Lu Sheng since the young man had his own path to follow. It just was not the same as theirs. The martial saint approached him, and while looking into his eyes, he told Xiao that despite Lu Sheng's ridiculous and childish idea, it was actually good. He put both hands behind his back and turned his head to the side, and while looking at the tall tower, he said that it had been a long time since he had seen a martial arts disciple as interesting as Lu Sheng. Xiao lowered his head before him and placed his hand on his chest and closed his eyes. He explained that after all, it had been their fault that Lu Sheng got into conflict with the Lian family. He knew that the martial saint was well aware of Lian Su's character. She would not give up so easily until she killed Lu Sheng. The martial saint turned his head toward Xiao and told him that since this was a choice Lu Sheng had made, he should naturally be aware of the consequences and be ready to fully assume them. After saying this, he turned his back on Xiao and thought that what he was saying also made sense. So he told Xiao to let Hua Yu protect Lu Sheng's family. With her there, the family would be safe. Xiao simply bowed his head before him and remained silent. As the martial saint walked away, he closed his eyes and explained that as for the rest, it was unnecessary to say more. Xiao had his hand on his chest and bowed his head. He opened his eyes, and while looking at the ground, he silently hoped that Lu Sheng would destroy the tower one day, since that was the only thing he could do for him now. At the same time, outside, the sun began to set. Our boy had both hands in his pants pockets and was staring at the tall tower. He thought about the consequences of rejecting the martial saint as his master. He had not chosen to reject the kindness of Provincial Governor Xiaopingnan before, but this time he was rejecting the martial saint who surpassed Xiaopingnan by millions of times. Doing this really required a lot of courage. He turned his head toward the tall tower, and while staring at it intently, he thought that after all, under the command of the martial saint, he was only going to be the second martial saint. What he had to do was surpass the martial saint and have absolute power to bring everything down. Lu Sheng took his hand out of his pocket and extended it toward the tall tower, and while making a grabbing gesture, he thought that only in this way would he be able to save the world. Several hours later, it got dark, and in a luxurious mansion somewhere in the city, a woman with brown hair placed her hand on the glass of the window and silently watched the buildings. She was lost in her thoughts with a sad and worried expression. While she was still touching the glass, a man opened the door to her room and asked her if she had sent Zhuang Kui. She snapped out of her trance and slightly turned her head toward him and remained silent for several seconds. She placed both hands on the glass and with a smile reminded him that this little beast had killed 2 members of the Lian family. Although she tried to remain calm, she was unable to, and several seconds later she exploded in anger. With an aggressive look, she told the man that Lian Jibei was just a useless master, so his death was not important to her. But Lian Ye was the last offspring of her family. The man reminded her with a calm voice that the family still had some illegitimate children and added that this was something she knew better than him. Upon hearing this, she turned her body toward the man and placed her hand on her chest and explained that this did not matter. She asked him why she could not send Zhuangqi to kill someone who wanted the Lian family to be extinguished. She lost her composure and approached the man and grabbed him by the neck. While tears were falling from her eyes, she told him that Lian Jibi was her biological brother and the other one was her nephew. Even though they were not talented, they were still her closest family. She was just a woman who wanted to collect a debt. She also reminded the man that neither of them had remained unscathed and they had died in a terrible way. Upon seeing that she had started to cry, the man slightly lowered his head and explained that he was not trying to blame her. He put both hands in his pants pockets, and while looking at her with a sincere gaze, he explained that although Zhuangqi had some ability, he still lacked a little more, which meant that he might not necessarily return successfully. He added that Lu Sheng was someone the martial saint had hopes for, which meant that he would surely send someone to protect him. If the Mingyu Hall sent someone along with others, then Zhuangqi would not be able to do anything, and would face the same fate as Lian Jibei and Lian Ye. Upon hearing this, the woman was in shock and asked the man if that little beast was really so strong. She approached him with a loving gaze and asked if she should send someone else with a higher rank. The man placed his hand on her waist and told her that it was not necessary, as he had sent the 12 yin shadows along with Zhuangqi. He hoped that with them there they would achieve the result she wanted to see. Upon hearing this, the woman began to blush, and as she slowly approached his face, she thought that ultimately he still cared about her. She prepared to kiss him, but at the last moment he decided not to do it and pushed her back. He explained that naturally he was going to help her, but this time she had gone too far by giving the secret technique of the Supreme Tao to Zhuangqi without permission. After saying this, the man turned his back on her and began to leave the room. While the woman was watching as the man was moving away, she started screaming and asked him what other way she had. The man ignored her and kept walking. She told him that he had not given her anything else. Upon hearing this, the man stopped walking and with a serious expression replied that he did not want this to happen again. The woman placed her hand on her chest and was somewhat surprised. Not long after, she fell to her knees, and while looking at the ground she started laughing out loud. The next day at the airport, a flight landed, and among the passengers heading toward the exit was a girl with brown hair wearing glasses named Peng Huayu. While walking toward the exit, she began to wonder if it was really necessary to be so anxious considering that she had just finished a mission. She still could not believe that someone only 19 years old had killed a master. She took out her mobile phone and opened Lu Sheng's photo and thought that he was more impressive than Xing Yuzong back then. She read the message that Xiao had sent her and could not believe that Lu Sheng had refused to become the martial saint's disciple. She found out that he had killed the entire Lian family, and in the end he intended to confront them all alone. She thought this was crazy, so she called Xiao and asked him why the martial saint wanted her to go protect his family. Xiao replied with a calm voice that the martial saint was compassionate. Although he could not accept Lu Sheng as a disciple now, he did not want to see a good talent go to waste. He also informed her that her opponent was Zhuangqi, who was the star of the 28 constellations of the Supreme Tao, with skills at roughly her level. He asked her to make good use of this opportunity. She slightly turned her head to one side, and upon learning that Zhuangqi had the same skills as her, she decided to proceed with caution. Several hours later, it got dark and the lights turned on in the Lu family's house. While Lu Sheng's family was preparing dinner, he suddenly opened the door and caught everyone's attention. The three turned their heads toward the entrance and were surprised to see that he had returned. His sister approached our boy and with a smile explained that his parents had been very worried about him. Lu Sheng simply started looking her in the eyes and could not help but smile. His mother crossed her arms and asked him why he had arrived so late, if he had told them he would arrive at 1 o'clock sharp. His father approached her and placed a hand on her shoulder and with a smile asked her to stop complaining, since the important thing was that Lu Sheng had arrived home safe and sound. Once his mother calmed down, his father turned around and with a smile asked Lu Sheng to come with him for some drinks. While Lu Sheng had one hand in his pocket and the other holding the backpack, he turned his head toward his father and replied with a smile that he was going right now. He threw the backpack toward his sister and asked her to take care of it. She grabbed it and was somewhat surprised, and reminded him that she was just a girl. He replied that it did not matter, and added that there was a gift for her inside. Upon learning this, she accepted without hesitation. She took the backpack and turned her back to him, and as she walked away, she told him that she finally understood why he could not find a girlfriend. She added that her brother was a true alpha male, and for this reason he deserved to be alone. Upon hearing her words, Lu Sheng became somewhat confused. While he was lost in his thoughts, his mother caught his attention. She reminded him that he had recently turned 19 years old, and it was time for him to find a girlfriend and stop wasting time fighting and killing. He put his hand behind his head and with a smile replied that he was only 19 and it was still early. To change the subject, he asked his mother what they were going to have for dinner tonight. At that moment, the young man slightly turned his head back and began to feel someone's presence. He turned his body toward the door, and while looking at his mother, he explained that he was going out to see a friend. He asked them to start dinner as he would be back soon. His mother replied that tonight she was going to prepare stewed chicken wings that would be ready in 15 minutes. She asked him to come back quickly or else the food would get cold. He began to move toward the door and thought that just 15 minutes would be more than enough. Several minutes later, Lu Sheng left his house and put his hands in his pockets and started walking around the area. Several seconds later, he felt the presence of a man hiding behind a tree. He continued walking, and with a serious look, he thanked the man for his hard work all this time. This man was the same one who was at the station watching the Lu family. He came out from behind the tree and bumped his fist against his palm, and while looking at Lu Sheng, he replied that this was just part of his job, so there was no need to thank him. While our boy had his hands in his pockets, he stood still and his body began to emit a powerful and suffocating energy. Seeing this, the man became somewhat nervous. He knew that Lu Sheng had just killed a veteran grandmaster that morning, which meant he still had fresh blood on his hands. To the man, Lu Sheng gave the impression as if he were facing a superior beast on the battlefield for the first time. Lu Sheng turned his head slightly back and with a smile asked the man to express his gratitude to Master Yu when he returned, and also tell him that soon he would fulfill what he had promised. The man used his power, and while slowly disappearing, he replied that he would do it without fail. Several seconds later, his sister came out of the house and called out to Lu Sheng, asking what he was doing outside, and requesting that he come back to eat. He decided not to waste any more time since the food was going to get cold. He began to walk and activated his perception. He put both hands back into his pants pockets, and his body started emitting a powerful energy which began to scan the entire area. Several seconds passed, and he became happy because there were no strong indications within a radius of 500 meters, which meant that they were not going to come tonight. His sister put her hands on her hips and once again called his attention, asking him to hurry up, and he responded that he understood. After some time on a day like any other, Peng Huoyu went to a cafe in the city and called Xiao. While slowly bringing the teacup to her mouth, she asked him where Zhuang Kui was. It had already been a week and he still had not shown up. She added that if he continued not to come, then she was not going to stay here waiting. Ziesu replied that according to the plan, Zhuang Kui should have arrived 4 or 5 days ago. Seeing that he still had not shown up, he started thinking that maybe as an expert he had problems with procrastination. While she was enjoying her cup of tea, a man who was sitting near her stood up and headed toward a taxi stopped on the road. He informed his superior that Peng Huoyu, ranked number 3 in Mingyu Hall, was inside the cafe and asked if they should take action. Inside the taxi there was a man with green hair sitting with a smile. He replied no. He explained to his subordinate that a week ago maybe it would have been necessary to take action, but now it was not anymore. Upon hearing this, the man got into the taxi and with a smile praised him for reaching the level of Grandmaster. This man was none other than Zhuang Kui himself. He gave the driver the order to go to Lu Sheng's house, and the taxi headed in that direction. At the same time, our boy began to meditate in his room. Within minutes, the taxi entered within his range of perception ability. He quickly turned his head to the side, and with a smile he thought that this energy belonged to a Grandmaster. Thinking about this, he could not help but feel happy and excited at the same time. Peng Huoyu was sitting in the cafeteria and enjoying her cup of tea while waiting for Zhuang Kui to appear. She casually turned her head to the side to look at the street through the window, and that was when she spotted Zhuang Kui's taxi heading toward Lu Sheng's house. She immediately realized that this taxi was not normal. She stood up and left the teacup on the table and placed her other hand on it. She turned her head toward the window and began to wonder if Zhuang Kui was really in this taxi. The workers and other people in the cafeteria turned their heads toward her, and they were confused because they had no idea what she was talking about. She quickly approached the glass and saw how many shadows of the Lian family were advancing rapidly toward the direction where Lu Sheng's house was. At first, she was somewhat confused because she did not know what was happening, but then she realized that something was wrong. She began to stare fixedly at the shadows of the Lian family and touched her earpiece and made a call to Xiao. She informed him that there were followers of the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy and added that things were about to get complicated. She grabbed the handle of her sword, and as she slowly unsheathed it, she remembered something. Although it was said that the shadows of the Lian family had obtained their level 7 strength through the secret method of the Holy Warrior, they were still not considered masters. She dragged her foot and assumed an offensive stance, and decided it was time to take action. She unsheathed her sword, and in the blink of an eye she left the cafeteria and attacked one of the shadows. She cut his head in two with a single strike. One of the shadows turned his head back, and upon seeing that one of his companions had been killed in a single attack, he was shocked. He tried to talk to her, but the signal was interrupted. She became confused and started touching her earpiece with her finger and asked him to repeat what he said. Just before the call got disconnected, Xiao revealed to her that the Lian family had sent 12 shadows to kill Lu Sheng. While she was holding the sword in one hand and touching the earpiece with the other and trying to regain the signal, several shadows appeared around her. 2 were in front of her and 6 were behind her. They began to advance quickly toward her with the intention of attacking her by surprise. At the same time, Zhuangqui's taxi arrived at Lu Sheng's neighborhood. Once the car stopped, he opened the door and put his foot outside. Several seconds later, he got out of the car. While he had his hand resting on the car door, he turned his body toward Lu Sheng's house and began to stare at it intently. He was thinking that he was going to fight against Lu Sheng, and he could not help but feel excited. His body involuntarily started emitting a powerful and suffocating energy. At the same time, Pang Huaiyu began to fight against the shadows. Although she was very strong, she could not face so many of them at once. One of the shadows punched her hard, and her body was thrown backward. She forcefully drove the sword into the ground and managed to stop her body. Once she stopped, she slightly turned her head to the side and saw Zhuangqi standing in front of Lu Sheng's house. Her expression changed drastically, and she looked at Zhuangqi with a surprised look. She thought to herself that this was not good at all. At that moment, the call signal stabilized again, and Xiao asked her what was happening. She began to touch her earpiece and explained to him that Zhuangqi was ready to attack. Xiao revealed that Zhuangqi was the supreme leader of the Supreme Dao Martial Arts Academy, who had entered the realm of the Grand Master. She turned her head toward Zhuangqi and saw how his body was surrounded by a powerful energy. She thought that if he and the shadows attacked Lu Sheng together, then our boy would not have any chance of winning. Zhuangqi began rolling up his sleeves. He was one of the 28 constellations better known as the Passage Star. Despite having followed the Supreme Martial Saint for 20 years, he had not been able to advance beyond the 7th level. He stared at Lu Sheng's house and extended his hands to the sides and thought that the wait had been worth it. Several seconds later, he joined the palms of his hands, and with a smile and killer look, he activated the coagulation of qi and blood. Then he used the technique called Connecting Heaven and Earth. While he had his palms together and was staring fixedly at Lu Sheng's house, his body began to emit a powerful red energy that started to rise toward the sky. The energy he was emitting was so powerful that suddenly it became dark around him. Then one of the streetlights near him turned on. He reached out his hand toward the light and began to wonder if this was how it felt when entering the realm of the Grand Master. Now he felt capable of even grabbing hold of the light itself. Using the power of the Grand Master, he concentrated the light into a single point and transformed it into a spear. Then he inserted the coagulation of qi and blood into the spear of light, and it changed color. He turned his head toward the spear, and while staring at it intently, he could not help but smile. He thought that this feeling was wonderful. He could not help but thank Lu Sheng, because if it were not for him provoking the great anger of the Martial Saint's wife, he would not have been able to obtain the secret technique. Thanks to that secret, he had now broken the chains that were binding him at level 7. He grabbed the light lance tightly, and it started changing shape and transforming into a sword. Once he transformed the light lance into a sword, he stood still for several seconds. While he was holding the light sword with one hand, his body began to emit a powerful energy, and he started walking toward Lu Sheng's house. He remembered that upon hearing that Lu Sheng was a martial master, even Mingyu Hall had mobilized for this. He decided it was time to personally attack Lu Sheng. At that moment, someone wearing shoes came out of the house and asked Zhuangqi what he was talking about. Zhuangqi turned his head to the side and saw Lu Sheng standing next to the entrance. Our boy put both hands in his pants pockets and turned his head towards Zhuangqi and asked who had sent him. Instead of answering the question, Zhuangqi tightened his grip on the light sword even more, and it emitted even more energy. Upon seeing that the young man had come out on his own, Zhuangqi gave the order to the shadows. He told them to enter his house first and decapitate all its members. He said the martial master's wife had expressly requested to see their heads. The shadows near him responded that they understood. Lu Sheng had his hands in his pants pockets, and he began to move towards Zhuangqi. He turned his head toward him and simply remained silent. Lu Sheng stood in front of Zhuangqi, and they both started staring at each other. The two shadows next to Zhuangqi decided to take advantage of this opportunity, and gaining momentum, they quickly started moving toward Lu Sheng's house. Lu Sheng turned his head toward them and considered intervening, but at that moment, Zhuangqi grabbed the light sword with both hands and gained momentum. He started running quickly toward Lu Sheng and told him not to get distracted because his opponent was standing right in front of him. While Zhuangqi was advancing rapidly toward our boy and getting ready to attack, Lu Sheng disappeared. Zhuangqi became confused and began wondering what was happening. In the blink of an eye, Lu Sheng appeared in front of one of the shadows. The shadow's expression changed drastically, and he began to stare at Lu Sheng with a look filled with fear. He started wondering what was happening. Zhuangqi turned his head to the side, and upon seeing that Lu Sheng had appeared in front of the shadow, he was surprised. He started wondering how it was possible for Lu Sheng to move at such a high speed. Just before the shadow had time to make a move, Lu Sheng attacked him with a soft and precise movement. Several seconds later, the man's head flew off to one side and fell to the ground. His body collapsed in front of Lu Sheng. The other shadow turned his head to the side, and upon seeing the head of his companion, he was shocked. He began to wonder how it was possible that Lu Sheng had killed a shadow with just a simple blow. The young man turned his body to the side and extended his hands toward the shadows. He thought to himself that they were very weak. He told them that despite having slightly more energy than most, their position as masters of shadows was as fragile as paper. After saying this, he asked the others if they also considered themselves great masters. While Zhuangqui's body was emitting a powerful and suffocating energy, he snapped his fingers and could not help but praise Lu Sheng for being an impressive person. While his body was surrounded by a powerful aura, and he was approaching Lu Sheng, he began to stare at him. With a smile, he told Lu Sheng that if they had met under different circumstances, maybe he would have chosen to be his friend. Lu Sheng turned his body towards Zhuangqi, and as he watched him slowly getting closer, he simply remained silent. At that moment, Lu Sheng's body began to emit a powerful blue energy. While he was touching his head with his hand, he turned his head towards Zhuangqi and started staring at him. He told Zhuangqi that being his friend was impossible. In a matter of seconds, his body began to emit an even more powerful energy than Zhuangqui's. He started touching his head with his hand and put the other one in his pants pocket. He looked at the ground and told Zhuangqi that he would never be friends with the dead. Zhuangqui's expression changed drastically after hearing that. He could not help but smile and think that Lu Sheng was an arrogant person. Although he tried to appear calm, he could not do it. He began to approach Lu Sheng, and due to the powerful energy emanating from his body, the ground started breaking into pieces. Several seconds later, he abruptly stopped and grabbed the sword with both hands. He forcefully plunged it into the ground, and several magical circles appeared. At that moment, his body began to emit an even more powerful energy. He decided to show Lu Sheng the power of a great 8th-level master. The magical circle he had invoked transformed into a wave that gradually grew larger. It was tearing everything in its path, including trees and grass, and even the ground. One of the posts that was near him detached from the ground and started flying around him, along with the trees and the grass. He forcefully nailed the sword into the ground and placed both hands on top of it. He began to stare at Lu Sheng and, with a smile, told him that with the power of a great 8th-level master, one could be rivers and mountains and sun and moon. While his body was surrounded by a powerful energy, he began to stare at Lu Sheng and, with a smile, explained that he could not wait any longer. He wanted Lu Sheng to feel the power of the great 8th-level master. Our boy simply took his hands out of his pants pockets and started looking at the ground. He remained silent for several seconds. Then he lifted his head and decided to show Zhuangqi the true power of a great 8th-level master. With a killer look, Lu Sheng began to stare at Zhuangqi and activated the form of the martial god. A huge magic circle appeared near him, and it began to emit a powerful energy. The energy was so intense that the shadows around it were unable to move at all. Lu Sheng did not waste this opportunity. He moved at an incredible speed, and in the blink of an eye, he cut the bodies of the shadows into pieces. Several seconds later, the pieces of the bodies of the shadows began to fall from the sky. Zhuangqi looked up at the sky, and upon seeing this, he was left speechless. He started wondering what was happening. He did not take long to realize that the remaining shadows had been instantly eliminated by Lu Sheng. At that moment, Lu Sheng's body began to emit a demonic energy, and the Demon King himself appeared behind him. Zhuangqi panicked upon seeing this and started wondering what was happening. Despite being nervous, he tried to appear calm. He tightly grabbed the light sword and pulled it out of the ground. Then he started looking at Lu Sheng and with a trembling voice asked if he believed that these tricks would scare him. He also added that he was not like the shadows, he was the great 8th-level master. He prepared to attack, but just before he could make a move, Lu Sheng appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. The young man placed his hand on Zhuangqui's chest. Zhuangqi lowered his head, and upon seeing Lu Sheng's hand, he was shocked. At that moment, Lu Sheng activated technique number 4, and his body emitted a golden energy. Zhuangqi panicked and began to wonder how it was possible for this to be happening. Lu Sheng attacked Zhuangqi and created a massive explosion in the process. Several seconds later, as the light from the attack started to fade away, it could be seen that Zhuangqi had a giant hole in his chest. He had been waiting for this day for 20 years. He could not believe that Lu Sheng had taken him so lightly. He fell to his knees on the ground and thought that this could not be happening. Slowly his body began to disappear, and he questioned if he really was a great master. While Zhuangqi's body was slowly disappearing, Lu Sheng passed by him. He asked if this was truly the power of a grand master. Lu Sheng's body began to unleash a demonic energy. He turned his head towards Zhuangqi and with a murderous look told him that he was not afraid of any grand master. He told Zhuangqi that unfortunately for him he was a god. The aftermath of Lu Sheng's battle was still fresh in the air. A woman with red hair and glasses stood frozen in disbelief on the street. A daughter made an innocent comment about the strange lady standing there like a fool, and that only deepened the woman's shock. She realized that everything happening around her was not a dream at all. Meanwhile, an observer recognized Lu Sheng immediately, but his assessment of Lu Sheng's aura was suspicious to him. The energy felt insubstantial and lacked the solidity compared to Zhang's. He concluded that Lu Sheng's breakthrough had been the result of unorthodox methods and possibly through the usage of sinister techniques to forcibly enhance his vitality and strength, but our boy's own internal evaluation was far more confident than that. He believed that the overwhelming destruction of an ordinary level 8 great martial master was well within his capability. His void-shattering technique of martial masters remained untouched, and the full reservoir of his spiritual power was still there. He reflected on the past and admitted that his usage of mental power had been truly wasteful. Only after the activation of the martial god state did he fully appreciate its incredible potential. His senses then picked up something interesting. She nearby seemed to have the intention of providing assistance, and he assessed that she could actually be useful to him. The caller demanded to know whether she had arrived at the target's location and what the situation looked like. Hua Yu's response was simple and devastating. She described the scene and said it was absolutely terrible. The caller assumed immediately that nothing could be done against a level 8 great martial master and said they should just accept Lu Sheng's burial arrangements as the next step. But Hua Yu corrected her fast. She clarified that the terrible state did not belong to Lu Sheng. It belonged to the people from the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy. Lu Sheng eliminated great martial master Zhuangqi and his 12 shadows within the span of 3 breaths, and the completeness of their destruction left no bodies intact at all. The caller could not believe what she was hearing. Then the final detail arrived. Lu Sheng's request was casual. He simply asked if someone could help with the cleanup of the area. The report reached the martial saint, and his only comment was that Lu Sheng's growth was becoming more fascinating by the day. 3 days passed after that, and the absence of any retaliation from the Supreme Tao was notable. Lu Sheng's doorbell rang, and it was a call from Vice Principal Zhao. The Vice Principal told him that Marshal Saint Tan had confirmed that the matter with the Supreme Tao Martial Arts Academy was settled. Their interference with Lu Sheng would no longer be an issue, at least from the Supreme Tao's side. The young man asked whether the Martial Saint had personally intervened to make this happen. The Vice Principal was not certain, but he believed that dispatching someone from Wan to provide assistance was likely the extent of the Martial Saint's aid. He suggested that Lu Sheng travel to the capital for the official certification of his martial master status, since achieving that rank at his age was extraordinarily prestigious. Lu Sheng told him the handling of that matter could wait, and that his visit for the diploma would come in due time. His thoughts then turned to the woman Hua Yu and her connection to the Lian family. He was confused because the sending of an elder rather than a young woman would have been the logical choice. He expected that their retaliation should have been far more severe than what he had seen. Then a call from Commander Yu interrupted his thoughts. The commander's role as the mediator in this situation was now clear, and he praised Lu Sheng enthusiastically. He acknowledged that Lu Sheng's killing of multiple super martial masters before the age of 30 was remarkable. Even the elimination of Tongquang, who was one of the Supreme Tao Academy's 28 constellations, was among his accomplishments. The commander asked Lu Sheng to forgive him for that palm strike from before. Lu Sheng observed that the speed of information travel to the military department was impressive. Commander Yu was amused and said he could not believe Lu Sheng actually killed a level 8 great martial master. Lu Sheng dismissed it and said Zhuangqui's attainment of that level had been through forbidden techniques, so the significance of his strength was not worth mentioning at all. Lu Sheng then asked about the concessions the military department had made to secure the Supreme Tao's compliance. Commander Yu confirmed that a price had been paid, but said the severity was not as great as Lu Sheng imagined. He said the handling of such situations was a routine occurrence for the military every year. Then the commander revealed something significant. Of the 3 existing martial saints in Dragon Kingdom, not a single one came from within the military. The implication behind his words was unmistakable, and our boy understood it instantly. He made a playful promise that upon his achievement of martial saint status, the commander's promotion would be guaranteed. Then he hung up. Lu Sheng was satisfied with the outcome and reflected that it was ideal and far better than his expectations. His full acceptance by the military as one of their own was now complete after the incident with the Supreme Tao. His gaze fell upon a military motto on a nearby wall, and he thought to himself that the military was truly a fitting place for a man. His attention then shifted to Zhuang Kui's forbidden technique, but his evaluation was one of complete contempt. A quick search in the dream space would yield hundreds of thousands of similar techniques. He judged the whole thing as trash and nothing more. He entered the dream space and announced that no fighting would take place today, and that everyone got a day off. His first order of business was to examine his own profile. The display revealed his complete history. The name Lu Sheng, with a lifespan spanning from martial year 207 to martial year 667. His classification was that of a second level 8 martial artist, and his life achievements marked him as a prodigy of his nation. The details of his accomplishments included winning the National University Martial Arts Championship and killing Lian Jibei and breaking through to level 8 martial saint at the age of 42. By the age of 86, his travels through various nations resulted in the defeat of all level 8 martial experts across the world. He was recognized as one of the top 10 outstanding martial saints in 1,000 years of martial arts history. His lifespan of over 300 years held the record as the longest ever, and his status was that of a beyond level 9 warrior. But the assessment was that without the solid foundation of level 10, his pioneering status ultimately ended in a fall from the peak. Lu Sheng's determination was absolute after reading all of that. He knew that the last opening of the path to level 10 occurred 3,000 years in the future. He declared that in this life, the pioneering of that path would be his achievement alone. His vision was that once the path ahead opened, the significance of the Fireseed Resource Library's resources would no longer matter. Countless martial prodigies would bravely forge ahead after that, and their inspirations would spawn even more stunning martial arts techniques. As for the killing of the Supreme Tao Academy's martial saint, he figured the collection of debts from any pests would happen in due time. Then the permission query appeared. His personal history review showed 7 stars, and the Fireseed Resource Library permission was at level 7 stars. Our boy was excited because the unlocking of techniques at the level 8 Great Martial Master realm was now within his grasp. He issued his command to the system and told it to search for the techniques that came after the Stellar Body Refining Art and the Nature's Breathing Technique and the Crystal Visualization Technique. Lu Sheng carefully read the 3 techniques. After reading so much information, he began to feel tired and sleepy, so he closed his eyes and put his hand near his mouth and started yawning. Then he crossed his arms and stared at the system windows intently. He thought that the advanced technique of the Stellar Body Refinement Art was called the Stellar Undying Art. It turned out that this was just the beginning. He began to imagine the martial will and came to the conclusion that the true key to ascending from level 6 to 7 was by condensing the martial will. He had to merge essence and energy and spirit into a single entity and then feed this back into his body. This would achieve an additional improvement in physical constitution. However, ascending from level 7 to level 8 was something deeper and more complicated. He remembered how Zhuang Kui had ascended to level 8 and had been able to grab the light with his hand. To do this, he not only needed martial willpower, but also had to break the bridge of the earth with his body. He had to transform his blood and condense it into a core, and turn from mortal to immortal. He began to imagine himself meditating in this way. Martial willpower infused every inch of flesh and bone, and made each movement contain a trace of the power of nature. If our boy managed to master this, then he would be able to kill his enemies with a single movement, since the destructive power would far surpass that of level 7. This was the biggest difference between level 7 and level 8. Although Zhuang Kui had managed to ascend to level 8, Lu Sheng knew exactly what he lacked. He turned his head to one side, and with a serious look he thought that Zhuang Kui had forced the improvement of his body, which had left a deficient foundation. In reality, he could not be considered a true level 8 Grand Master. After thinking this, Lu Sheng put his hand under his chin and began to read carefully the information displayed on the system window. Several minutes later, the expression on his face changed drastically. He began to shout with excitement as he had discovered that eternal cells were the key. The true inheritance of the Stellar Body Refinement Art was the introduction of the concept of eternal cells, in order to achieve a true state where even if the star extinguished, he would not perish, and even if all things withered away, he would endure. This meant that only by reaching this level could he ascend to level 8. In other words, this was the physical strength that Lu Sheng was looking for. The reason he could be more powerful than common masters was because he possessed an immortal golden body. At level 7, his body was comparable and even stronger than that of a level 8 Grandmaster like Zhuang Kui. The first thing that was done in the Stellar Undying Art was that the practitioner broke their core. The immense energy and blood along with martial willpower were used to cultivate a cell, and that cell was called an eternal cell. At the beginning, when he started practicing the stellar body refinement art to obtain an immortal golden body, he thought that having a body like a star and striking with the force of a star was just an exaggerated claim. It was merely a martial aspiration. For him, it was like when someone compared a level 9 martial saint to the sun and moon in the sky. The real question was whether a martial saint could truly shine like the sun and moon. While the young man had his arms crossed and was reading the content of the system windows around him, he began to smile. He thought that this question made the myth reflect in reality and demonstrated immortality in person. If the stellar undying art reached perfection and detail, then even eternal cells could reach maximum greatness. He began to imagine himself floating in space while his body was surrounded by golden energy. If all the cells in the body could become immortal, then true union with the universe would be achieved. A person could master the stars and attain eternal immortality. Lu Sheng began to imagine the martial saint as the supreme being of the universe, and estimated that not even he had reached that level. This was a much grander project than anything before. A question came to his mind. In order to achieve this, he did not know what resources were necessary. He closed his eyes, and with a smile he thought that by calculating well, not even a whole star would be enough. At that moment, his body began to emit immense energy and blood. He thought that anyway this was an invincible technique. By just achieving a single eternal cell, if he could do this, then his martial body would far surpass that of the common great masters. With 2 cells he would be unstoppable, and with 3 he would be invincible. He closed his eyes, and as his body was surrounded by an intense aura, he began to bring his hands together. His form gradually appeared in the dream space. Even if Lu Sheng made a mistake in practice, the impact on reality would be minimal, and for this reason he had no fear. In a matter of seconds his core began to appear. However, this was what sustained all his energy and blood. He extended his hand to the side, and it started emitting a blue aura. Then he opened his eyes and began to stare fixedly at his core. He questioned if it was really necessary to break it. Without giving it much thought, he decided to give it a try. While his hand was emitting a powerful blue aura, he placed his hand on his chest and gave the order for his core to break. In a matter of seconds, slowly but surely, his core began to shatter into pieces, and a powerful energy started pouring out of his body. It caused him terrible pain. Due to the pain, he extended his hands to the sides and bent his body and began screaming in agony. But immediately he calmed down and put his hand back on his chest. He decided to condense his core. Because of this, he opened his mouth and started bleeding and felt even more pain. He could not help but close his eyes and scream in pain. While he had his hand on his chest and his body was expelling energy, his consciousness, which was made of blue fire, began to manifest. Seeing that Lu Sheng was suffering, his consciousness put its hand on his head, and gradually the energy started to stabilize. Thanks to the help of his consciousness, our boy closed his eyes and began to condense energy in his forehead. In a matter of seconds, he was able to cultivate an eternal cell. An eternal cell was born on Lu Sheng's head. He dropped his arms and clenched his fists tightly, and his forehead started emitting the same energy as the eternal cell. Then he tightly clenched his fist, and his body was surrounded by a powerful orange aura. At that moment, Lu Sheng combined this energy with the golden energy and delivered a strong punch to the ground. It shattered into pieces. Lu Sheng's strike was so powerful that golden thunders appeared throughout the dream space sky and began destroying all the buildings. Several seconds later, he began to sigh and deactivated the technique. The golden aura that was around his body started disappearing. Lu Sheng's strike had destroyed the entire dream space city and created a large crack in the ground. Seeing how powerful this power was, he began to question if this was the strength of an eternal cell. Little by little, he began to stand up. He had only used a small part of the power of the eternal cell, and yet he was able to throw a much stronger punch than any of his previous punches. Lu Sheng stood up and started shaking his fist. He stared at it intently and could not help but smile. The strength of a star, and the blood and energy and the power and the grip of the star, and the fist of the 4 realms had all merged into a single punch thanks to the eternal cell. He began to reach out his hand toward the sky, and thought that this was the combination of extreme strength and extreme skill. He decided to give a name to this strike. While Lu Sheng's body was surrounded by a golden aura, he tightly clenched his fists and started staring straight ahead. With a serious look, he decided to call this strike Heaven's Grasp. At that moment, little by little, Lu Sheng's eyes began to close. He did not know why suddenly he felt so tired. He lost control over his body and fell backward onto the ground. He was completely powerless, having only condensed a single cell. While little by little his eyes were closing, he began to look toward the sky. He came to the conclusion that this was also related to his own lack of energy and blood. He needed to obtain more resources. In the dream space sky, 3 giant monsters appeared, and with a murderous gaze they began to stare at Lu Sheng. They were eager to fight him. Fortunately, he did not have to worry about obtaining more resources, as he was soon going to the Eastern Military District. The battlefield on the front line was full of exotic beasts, and danger also meant wealth. It was just what he needed to fill the insatiable void of the Eternal Cell. With his last bit of strength, he reached out toward the sky. Seeing how powerful an Eternal Cell was, he began to question if he would be able to fight against a Martial Saint at level 9 with 10 Eternal Cells. He began to stare up at the sky and thought that if 10 cells were not enough, then he was going to cultivate 100 or even 1,000 if necessary. He supposed that with 1,000 cells he would be able to crush the Supreme Tao Martial Saint with just one move. He woke up in his room and sat on the bed. He turned his head toward the clock, and upon seeing the time he put his hand on his head. This dream had turned out to be very satisfying, as he had slept for about 12 hours. With a serious look, the young man activated his senses and his body emitted a blue aura. Thanks to this, he saw that his father was happily playing chess with the general. His sister, who had headphones on, had her eyes closed and was dancing in the yard. His mother was cooking in the kitchen. He came to the conclusion that the Supreme Tao's people were not going to come after all. He put his hand on his knee and turned his head to one side. He started enjoying the views through the window and thought that after all, the Supreme Tao Martial Saint would not risk his reputation by fighting a 19-year-old young man to death for 2 relatives. To Lu Sheng, they were scum who ultimately had to maintain some dignity. Lu Sheng got off the bed and put on his flip-flops. He thought that the woman named Lian Su was not going to be as calm as the Supreme Tao Martial Saint. He put on his shirt and left his room and started going down the stairs. He still needed to eliminate the danger in its cradle. He had to find an opportunity to deal with Lian Su. Lu Sheng went down to the kitchen and grabbed a bun that his mother had prepared. He told her that he was leaving. While she was holding a tray, she slightly turned her head toward him and thought that he was hopeless. Once again, he was leaving without eating properly. He took the bun and turned his back on his mother and began to move away from her. Along the way, he passed by the living room and something caught his attention. He quickly turned his head to one side and saw that the television was on. Ling Su was on the television for an interview. Our boy took a bite of the bun and started watching the television. He could not help but smile since he had not seen her in a while, and he happened to have something to talk to her about.